order. You receive. Mr. Sylvester?
Ready? Okay, John.
In 1980, they made a law that anybody that was in the service or is in the service now may stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthem. They may salute with their caps on or off, and if they wish, they can put their hand over the heart. Everybody else can stand, put their hand over the heart. Now, for you new recruits, you might start learning this. On your command, there's two parts of your command. Your preparatory command, which tells you what you're going to do, and your command of execution, which is the second part. When I give attention, please stand up, everybody. Okay, hut! Retake! Hard! Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and please stay standing for the national anthem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Order! Halt! Like I said before, everybody should have their hand over their heart or saluting if they were a veteran or is a veteran now. Thank you.
Roll call. Mr. Borthwick?
Here.
Mr. Dustin? Here. Ms. Gilmartin? Present. Mr. Lush?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Norton? Mr. Vogel? Mr. Schuster?
Here.
Mrs. Dixon?
Present.
9 present.
Now, Mr. Ahern?
Good evening to the Board of Directors. I did have a chance a little bit beforehand to talk to the seniors going into the military. So I won't repeat that to them, what I said. But I would like to point out, Dr. Kurian has been a special friend to the veterans. As you all know, we're building a park down near the stadium, cooperated fully with that. We come here every year, and you can see why we're so excited to come here and honor these seniors. And again, we started this 3 years ago on Dr. Kurian's watch. So she promotes patriotism in the school district, and we like that. And I'm sure that you like that, and our community likes that. You know, around America, there's thousands of school districts. some of those school districts, in an entire school district with one or more high schools, they don't get even one student, one senior entering into the military. And that's okay. We're not criticizing that because it's an all-volunteer military that we have in America. But how about this? We have 18 students entering the military from our senior high classes from the Scranton School District. We appreciate that. We appreciate the school district. We appreciate their parents, our community, for encouraging them to do something which we feel will be something that will help them throughout their life. Now, I would like to introduce the veterans who I brought here with me tonight. We have Jim Kuchwar. Jim's commander of VFW Post 25. Bob Killian, Army veteran. Jim's an Army veteran. Joe Sylvester. How about the way Joe says the Pledge of Allegiance? We love that pledge, Joe. Thank you so much. Wally Evans, Army veteran. And John Wozniak, happens to be my nephew, Air Force veteran. So thank you guys for coming here tonight. Now what I'd like to do is read off the names of, we have some students who could not make it tonight. They have jobs. So that comes first. I'd like to read off their names so that they're part of the record, if you don't mind. And let's see, after I read these names off, then we'll give them a hand and we'll move on. Mia Rios is from Scranton High School, and she's going into the Navy. Christian Carrera is from Scranton High. He's going into the Army. Isaiah Lee is from Scranton High. He's going into the Army. And Nicholas Bellis is from West Scranton High School, and he's joining the Navy. So let's give them kids a nice hand. Okay, at this time, before I call up the seniors who are going into the military, I'm going to ask Jim Kuchwar from VFW Post 25 to speak to these students a little bit and their parents. Jim is the commander of our local VFW post. Jim?
I want to thank each and every one of you and the students for giving me this opportunity to be here today. To be part of this honor. This is truly an honor. I am the commander of VFW Post 25, which is the 25th VFW in the country. And we represent all our fallen comrades we went through a tough weekend for Memorial Day. And here we are today to give honor and respect to those students who stepped up to the plate and chose to go into the military. I was a graduate of the United States Army. I was a 3-year graduate, and I'm a very proud veteran that I can be here, standing here, speaking to you. You students, you're not students anymore. You're going into the military. You are going to get a degree from a college and be part of a team that their graduates have learned the true meaning of what honor, respect, and dignity is about. You're going to take this course, and you will get a course and an education more than they'll ever find at the University of Notre Dame or at Harvard or Yale or even at Penn State. We as the veterans salute you for taking this great step of being part of the same symbol as we all were. There's your symbol right there, the American flag. You're going to get an education that will go way beyond that you can imagine. And as Pat said, it will continue when you get out of the service. I am the commander of a VFW, that is Veterans of Foreign Wars, and I hope you can come over and join as a veteran. Because if you are a regular member, a veteran of foreign war, that means you served in war. And I hope you never see war. And that was all of our dreams that served in the world, going back to from World War I all the way up to the present Iraq and Afghanistan and the Vietnam War. We thought that would be the war that would end all wars. And you will get an education that is well worth the time that you were going to put in. I was standing over there talking with the other veterans, and we're looking at you, and we could all look at you and look at your faces and say to you, we know what you're going to go through. And trust me, you won't do it alone. There's nothing to be afraid of. You've got honor and respect. You'll be respected to the fullest. And when you graduate from the Army, Marine, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, whatever branch you join, you are with an elite group of people. And we look forward to do a follow-up on each and every one of these, to see how you're doing. Whenever you've gone away, if you write to your parents and would like some veteran to write to you, we'd be glad to. You're not doing it alone, because all of us veterans that came home and got the education and we're in wars, we're on the sideline cheering for you. So we salute you. And I can't go on without not only saying enough, not only for the parents who got you to the step of coming to school, and then your teachers took over, and you as the school board directors, you got them to this level. You all have a lot to be proud of. The parents, they're your children, and we are the veterans, and we're proud of you. We don't have to wish you luck, we just wish you success. And remember one thing, we all love you. We're in your corner. Thank you.
Okay, our first senior, Daniel Acosta. Where's Daniel? He's going into the Marines. Thank you. And we have Caden Baldoni joining the National Guard and also from Scranton High School. We have Jeffrey Bello. He's from Scranton High School and he's joining the Marines. Daisy Dominguez from Scranton High School joining the Marines. Michaela McDonald from Scranton High School joining the Marines. John Randazzo from Scranton High School joining the Marines. Destiny Goditis from Scranton High School joining the National Guard. Kyle Snyder from Scranton High School joining the National Guard. Natalia Martinez from West Scranton High School joining the Marines. Zayna Williams from West Scranton High School joining the Marines. Alejandra Otero from West Scranton High School joining the Marines. Caleb Mariano from West Scranton High School joining the Army. And Katie Fontini from West Scranton High School joining the Army. Now for the parents and the kids, what we're going to do here now, I'm going to excuse you. We're going to go out into the cafeteria and we can get some pictures out there if you want, a group picture or a picture with the veterans, whatever you like, okay? So thank you and congratulations.
work session now. Mr. Lappy, budget update.
Good evening. In place, there should be a packet of information for the April 30th budget for actual update. The first section we'll go through is our local revenue. The first section that we'll go through is our local revenue sources, and this is through the first 4 months of 2019. Locally, the taxes that we've received so far this year are $40,887,853. That consists of our real estate, our Act 511 wages, occupational tax, yearly transfer, business privilege, and mercantile. That same amount as compared to last year was $38,907,985. So we're up by $1,979,000. A lot of that could be have to do with timing of disbursements. However, real estate is up $1,364,000 compared to that same time last year. And obviously the school board district levy taxes this past budget year of 3.6%. So I attribute some of that increase to that the Act 1 index levy. In the month of April, we also closed on the sale of our delinquent taxes. That was in the amount of $4,630,000. Which was about $180,000 over our budgeted amount. So there's a positive there, and obviously that's one transaction per year. The next largest piece of our local is our miscellaneous revenue. In total, we budget just over $1,120,000. That consists of 3 different areas: stop loss reimbursements for $400,000. A food service transfer of $445,000, and other miscellaneous revenue of $275,000. Currently, right now, we're showing $469,000 as miscellaneous revenue. The food service transfer has not taken place yet. That typically happens at the end of the school year, where all our costs are calculated. The transfer is made then. Of the $469,000 that we're showing, the largest piece of that is attributed to about $285,000 of stop loss reimbursements. So, we're looking to reach that $400,000. Overall, the local revenue for the first 4 months is $46,365,000 on a budget of $69,125,000, or 67% of our budget. I would say that, things are coming in as planned, as budgeted so far for the first 4 months. The next page will show your state sources of revenue. Through the first 4 months, the basic ed and special ed subsidy have been received as scheduled, and that totals $14,567,000. And we are set. We actually already did receive our next basic ed funding on May 31st. It just came in the end of last week. Transportation subsidies have been received so far this year, $703,000. We also received our subsidy report, which lists our pupil transportation subsidy for the 18-19 school year. So, and it's showing that we will receive $1,139,000 on a budget of $1.2 million. So just a little short, but pretty close to that mark. So that's good to hear. And we should receive our next subsidy for transportation in June. One of the largest pieces of the puzzle for 2019 from a state source was the $6 million Ready to Learn Block Grant supplemental, and that was to be paid in 2 installments. We have received our first $3 million on schedule back in February, and we anticipate receiving the remaining balance in June as planned. All of our retirement Social Security reimbursements have been received on schedule in 2019, and we anticipate that our first quarter of 2019 reimbursement will be received in June as well, so there's no concern there at this time. Overall, state receipts total just shy of $25 million, $24,952,000 on a budget of $84,507, and we represents about 30% of our budget so far has been collected. next page would be your federal revenue sources. At our last meeting we presented, we weren't showing any title reimbursements at that time. There was a slight delay in some of those. In the month of April, we started receiving those funds, and we have received $811,000 for all of our title programs thus far. The budget total for title is $6,032,000. We will be submitting a kind of like a catch-up request that they can expedite payments, because typically what happens is the quarterly report is filed. Because we received funds at that time, no report was required, but they've acknowledged that, we are in need of some catch-up contributions. So I envision probably by the next time we're presenting in front of you, we will have more of that for you. Again, overall federal revenues of $881,000 on a budget of $6,982,000, or just about 13% of our budget's been collected. One of the bigger pieces of funding for 2019 was our other sources, which consisted of a sinking fund transfer. There was money set aside in the 2014 note sinking fund that would be budgeted and utilized to pay the principal and interest. That has occurred in April as scheduled, and the next one is set to occur in October. So that, as planned, is working forward. The budget also included the shortfall of $3.6 million, which we anticipated needing a working capital borrowing. As we last met, the proposed state budget, governor's budget, could potentially net the district in calendar year 2019 just around $3.3 million more in additional revenue. We're hoping that if that was to come through, that the need for any borrowing and the interest and principal that I budgeted for on the expenditure side wouldn't be necessary, and looking at hopefully a year where borrowing is not required. In total, we've collected $72,199,000 of our budget of $166 million, or just about 43%. So as of right now, I'm happy to report everything seems to be coming in as we planned. Do you have any questions on the revenues?
We are going to be getting all of our title on that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a concern that it wasn't going to come. It was a time when we received it. Typically, it works as like a reimbursement. We expend the dollars, we request a reimbursement. There was a change to the budget paperwork, and it kind of delayed a little bit, but then the funds are coming in as scheduled now. Okay. So following there, we have our budget summary reports, which are printed out from our CSIU software. So those are the next 3 pages. It's just a recap of exactly what I just went through. If you go over to the page following CSIU, you'll see the expenditure budget for the Scranton School District broken out by function, from instruction all the way down to your debt service. So far this year, we've expended $22.8 million of our salary budget, of just about $68 million. We appear to be on schedule with our salaries, which obviously is our largest expenditure. Healthcare so far this year, pension and FICA all appear to be in line with where we anticipated them to be at the beginning of the year. One of the helps with healthcare this year was we, through some changes to prescription plans, we engaged the group to increase our our prescription rebates, and that has materialized. We have seen that, so our rebates for prescription have increased, and we are showing that. Overall, we've expended $47,885,000, and we've encumbered another $924,000 of accrued payables, or just about 29.4% of our budget. Our receipts have, just as similar to last month, our receipts have obviously surpassed our expenditures to date, but that's not uncommon for this time of year. In May, when I report to you in May, you'll see a large debt service payments. In June, we have a few debt service payments, so that will catch up soon, but it's not uncommon to see that this early. There's some areas that we're going to keep an eye on. Some of our contracted costs for special ed are trending a little higher than we anticipated. We increased the budget for contracted contracted services by about $300,000 last year. So we're keeping an eye on that there. And as I reported last month, some of our maintenance for repairs and maintenance and supplies in that department is at about 55% of their budget so far this year. There obviously was some difficult weather and things like that earlier in the year, so we're keeping an eye there as well. But other than those two areas, I don't see too many major areas of concern at this time. So that would be my presentation for this evening. I'd be happy to take any questions. Okay. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lappin.
Okay, under budget and finance, under consent, we have a resolution for the approved bill list. Again, under consent, the approval for the exception bill list, resolution to approve delinquent tax reports under consent, approve the treasurer's report under consent, approve the depository sale under consent, approve the budget transfers under consent, and as far as the resolutions are concerned, on B6, the superintendent of schools and the budget and finance committee present the following resolution for your consideration. Be resolved that the treasurer's report. Pardon me?
That's the meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, under the regular meeting. And resolution to approve award workman's comp third-party administrator, resolution to approve the tax assessment appeal, and a resolution to approve tax-exempt property settlements.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Postma. Director Duffy? Do you have a question, Mr. Director Schutz?
We got a couple different bids for the workman's compensation. I don't know if you'd like to, the board would like a run through of those bids. I mean, I did see there was some unknowns there that I feel.
We received 5 bids in total. We have a summary that we can provide for you that breaks out each company's proposal was starting with their annual, what we call flat fee, and also any additional expenditures related to hourly rates for nurse case management, medical bill claim reviews, peer reviews, pharmacy reviews, travel times, and case management. It also lists the savings fee. That fee is the lower the number, is actually more beneficial to the school district. Any repricing of any invoices, they would take a lower percentage of the savings as a cost to them. So we presented that. Again, there was 5. And we'll be recommending Excalibur Management this evening with a $45,000 claim cost and a $12,000 nurse case management cost for a total of $57,000. That's all inclusive and includes all.
Yeah, that's what it seemed to be. There was some, see below, and there's associated costs with those. I would assume that they'll go well over $30,000.
Based off our first calculations, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and the set fee cost, even if we experience a bad year, we at least know we can target and budget for it appropriately.
Yes. All right, thank you. That answers my question.
Any other questions? Okay. Director Duffy?
Thank you, Madam President. Under Community Relations, I have a resolution to approve the Lackawanna College advertising agreement. That will be the only thing I have.
Director Norton?
Under Education, you have a resolution to approve the ATSI plan for Scranton High, West High Trip, and West Intermediate. Resolution to approve 2019-2020 school calendar. The resolution to honor Caesar, Acosta Skills USA medalist, gold medal in computer systems, cybersecurity, and will attend the national competition in June. resolution to approve permission to attend the Scranton High School field trip.
I have a question. Are all of these to be on the consent agenda?
I'm looking now.
Yeah, I'm just a little confused by that. Are these all to be on the consent agenda?
Yes, yes. Where are they?
Last meeting.
Okay.
This is all paperwork we got from the last meeting. Or signed from the last meeting.
Yeah. You got all those in your packets last week?
Right.
The principals are going to be presenting the ATSI plans tonight.
Okay.
On the school calendar, that's our new start date and
Right.
date.
But what I'm saying is, are these all under the consent agenda?
Yes.
Or are we, okay.
Yes. and
Now, are we adding that D4 to that consent agenda?
D4 under education, yes, I was just bringing that to Mr. Norton. That is the Scranton High School.
That's the Scranton High.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so, excuse me, Dr. Chair, so the vote to honor this young man is under consent, but he will be honored at the regular meeting,
Yes.
or recognized, I should say.
And are we doing the presentations of
So
the
we'll
eight?
pull the resolution
now?
from
The
the consent.
ATSI.
Now? Or,
Okay.
Yes.
so we're calling
The principals
Oh, yeah.
are here. We're going to start with Joe Lally. Right there.
May I? I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Lots of things are going on. I have one other question. If it is intended to be under the consent agenda, with approved permissions to attend, there's one person listed here that I believe was on leave. Is this simply something that is required, and this person will be attending?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
so we're calling the principals up now to present the
Yes,
plan.
and Joe Lally is going to kick us off tonight. Mr. Lally?
Good evening, school board, Dr. Karen.
Good evening, Joe.
Behind me are the fellow colleagues that have worked on the ATSI plans. We will be brief. I just have a brief introduction of what the plans were, how it was formed, and then we'll go into each individual school, okay? Behind you on the screen should be a short recap of the presentations, our goals, and our objectives. The ATSI process, which stands for Additional Targeted School Improvement, came under the ESSA plan for the state, which is Every Student Must Succeed Act. Schools are required to develop a comprehensive plan if their student populations don't meet the requirements for school improvement. So all of our schools presented tonight are under that category. All are performing or need help in students with learning disabilities, and for Scranton High graduation rates of the English language learner process, okay? Just to give you a brief overview of it. This process is mandated by PDE, and the committees were formed with the facilitator leading each committee. The facilitator was independent of the school, did not work with the school, did not have any prior engagement with the school. Our facilitators were myself for Scranton High, and Greenbeck worked with Isaac Tripp, Joseph Haney with West Scranton High School, and Mina Artistani helped out at Western Media. They were the facilitators, and they were part of the steering committee. The steering committees were formed with teachers, community members, business partners, college professors, parents, so on and so forth. We met on a monthly basis to draft a plan. Those plans were drafted based on research that we did for best practice, student surveys, parent surveys, and interviews done with colleagues and students as well. We acquired all the data and we put it into a plan based on what the committee felt was the most need for the school to meet those areas that they were recommended by the state to improve. At that point, the plans were drafted. Dr. Keating, who can't be with us tonight, sat in on all the meetings, and Dr. Kieran reviewed our plans schools. Obviously, we're presenting tonight, and here were some of the areas where the schools primarily came to a consensus on. In order to do this effectively and with fidelity, professional development for our staff is critical. We, as a group, organize and will continue organizing the building principals, monthly release time for professional learning, and that will occur during the school day at very little to no additional cost to the district. We will have a compressed schedule on certain days that are going to be built in or have already been built into the calendar for next year. All the schools, if you take a look at the second bullet, will concentrate on differentiated instruction for all learners. Our staffs will be trained in it. We have Alexis Bagney from the IU coming to train the building principals and the facilitators, so in turn they can train the staff on all of the elements of differentiated instruction, which through research has shown will improve where we need our areas of concern with our students with learning disabilities on our state testing. We will also take a look at professional learning communities for teachers to better use and utilize our professional development time that we set aside for our teachers, so that this can be a 3-year plan and that we could focus solely on improving those areas that the state has identified for us for concerns. And the last part, I think I hit on it, but all of what we're doing in the next 3 years concerning the ATSI plans are targeted and are meant to hit the areas that each school deemed necessary as per the state. We'll get into the various schools now, okay? Any questions so far? Sure.
Good evening. So, as Mr. Lally had indicated, Scranton High School was targeted by PDE in the areas of students with disabilities and also our English language learners in the area of graduation rate. So we put together a committee, again, that was comprised of students, parents, community members, teachers, administrators from our school districts and college, professionals and professors, which included one person also from our medical college, Geisinger Medical School. So at Scranton High School, we've identified 3 areas or 3 goals that we're going to improve on next year. The first, as Mr. Lally said, talks about differentiation of assessments. The second area talks about differentiation in the classroom when it comes to instructional methods and strategies. And the third area to improve both attendance and graduation rate of those targeted students was to implement a school-wide positive behavior system throughout the school. So our objectives to meet those goals kind of go hand in hand with what we talked about. We are going to provide our teachers with professional development on those 2 areas of differentiated instruction and assessment, and establish those resources and strategies necessary so that teachers can utilize them in their classrooms. And the second bullet point up there talks about how to motivate students through that school-wide positive behavior system in order to meet attendance and graduation requirements through that positive behavior support system.
Good evening. As Mr. Lally said, and Mr. Coyle echoed as well, we went through the same process at West Scranton High School, forming our steering committees, going through our meetings, and what really stood out through our meetings was the feedback we got from our teachers and focus groups, the feedback we got from our community members and the parents that were on our committees, and they all focus around these 3 goals: identify and address individual student learning needs, identify professional learning needs through analysis of a variety of data, use systematic collaborative planning processes to ensure instruction is coordinated, aligned, and also evidence-based. So our objectives are based on those 3 goals. We talked about more differentiation in the classroom, multi-tiered levels of support to go along with our school-wide positive behavior program. Consistent, continuous professional learning. We talked a lot about consistent professional learning for our teachers and really targeted professional learning about what they wanted to learn and based on our building goals and what we wanted to accomplish as a faculty and as a staff at West Scranton High School. Talked about establishing protocols for collaboration, looking at our keystone courses, there are tested areas, and giving those teachers collaborative planning periods so they can talk about common assessments, common things within their classes, random goals and initiatives and things that they want to accomplish.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to West Intermediate. I agree with Sarah. Oh, I'm sorry. Absolutely, it's sunny and 80. She just tweeted that in West Scranton, it's always sunny and 80.
Hello, my name is Nina Aristani. I'm a facilitator working with Paul and Danielle Boyce, and I'm principal at McNichols Plaza Elementary School. Like the presenters prior to us, we've gone through the same process. We've had several meetings. I'd say it was bi-weekly rather monthly. And our goals at West Scranton Intermediate, based on student feedback, parent feedback, the committees that have gathered regularly discuss all the data that Paul and Danielle worked so hard to present, and the goals that we came up with at West Intermediate were to promote and sustain a positive environment where all members feel welcome, supported, and safe in school, socially, emotionally, and physically, to identify professional learning needs through analysis of a variety of data, and then aligning curriculum, assessments, and instruction and PA standards. So that goes with the essential practice. Those are actually 3 of the essential practices through this process.
How we're going to try to meet those goals is, we're going to try to increase our parent and family engagement in the schools, and really, I want people in the schools. We want these families to come in. That's become a huge obstacle, a huge hurdle that is very difficult to get people to come in the door. And when you're trying to create buy-in within that school community, you need that partnership with parents and families. So we're going to invite families to come into the school, and we want to increase our family participation at school events. We're going to offer ongoing professional development for staff, and through all their surveys, they're creating, and specifically focusing on differentiated instruction, differentiating assessment, and that will certainly benefit where our math deficiency was with regards to our students with disabilities. And our third one is to increase mathematics achievement and growth for all student groups. We're going to try to provide remediation within the same class period. The one benefit we have as a secondary school at the intermediate level is that we have 56-minute class periods, which is a long time for a secondary school. And we're going to try to provide small group remediation within that class period, getting creative with our staff. And our goal is to increase basic math skills, because that's going to go a long way. But that's the plan for West Intermediate. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Paul Stefani. I'm one of the 2 principals at Isaac Tripp Elementary School.
I'm Kelly Coyne. I take care of preschool for 2nd grade at Isaac Tripp Elementary.
Again, you're going to hear a lot of similarities with our plans. The interesting thing about this, though, is that the 4 schools involved had 4 separate steering committees, all involved students, parents, community members, as you heard before. Despite that, we came up with very similar goals and a similar action plan. I think that one of the most enlightening things or positive things about the whole process was giving students a voice. Students participated in classroom walkthroughs and had tremendous insight with regard to what was happening in our building. So I want to thank everybody that was involved in the process because seeing things through my eyes, through Kelly's eyes, 2 sets of eyes, limits us to just 2 sets of eyes, and bringing all these people in was a tremendous asset, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So our first goal was to promote and sustain a positive school environment where all members feel welcome, supported, and safe in school, socially, intellectually, and physically. The second goal, identify professional learning needs through analysis of a variety of data. And the final goal, implement a multi-tiered system of supports for academic and behavior.
Our objectives for our plan include increasing parent and family engagement, increasing communication among families, and continuing to analyze our positive behavior and intervention support program. Providing targeted professional development opportunities for faculty and staff with regard to our PBIS, that is our positive behavior intervention support system. Provide professional development for differentiated instruction and assessment, and targeted instruction for both math and ELA in order to increase achievement in both areas and prioritizing that achievement and specifically focusing on math. And finally, to implement RTII, which is response to instruction and intervention for K-2 at this time. Planning would be during the 2019-2020 school year with full implementation during the 2020-2021 school year, and collaborating with all the teachers and faculty in grades 3 to 5 to then bring RTII building-wide. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone who's been involved in this project. It's been a long project, and the work that's been done is truly phenomenal. From our standpoint in central office, we are trying to help with making some changes in the calendar, where we will have release time monthly now for teacher professional learning, where this year it was condensed to a few months throughout the year. And then we will actually begin our professional development at our Summer Leadership Institute for our principals, who will carry it back to our teachers. So for all of you who've been involved in this, we know this is just the beginning, and we hope that this will be implemented with fidelity. And I was happy to see the focus on the plans for mathematics and to engage families more in education, because we know that's what it's going to be about. So thank you again for all your hard work.
Thank you. Mr. Norton, you got through all of those, right? So now we're going on to operations. Director Lesh.
Yes, we have a few resolutions. We'll be awarding the integrated pest management, awarding the environmental health, awarding shredding, awarding approve the sale of used vehicles.
We'd like to make some comments under operations for what Mr. Lesh just presented. For pest management, environmental health, and shredding, we received no responses to our RFPs. As far as sale of used vehicles were concerned, we had one person come and look, and there was no offers for those vehicles. So the resolutions will not be read at the regular board meeting because we have no interest from vendors.
Well,
No.
shredding is already for, we have Carolyn, don't we?
Yes, but we're putting, per board direction, everything out to bid.
No, I understand, they
Yeah.
didn't bid on it?
They didn't bid on it, we'll just continue to use them the way we currently use them. It's a call for certain instances, and they come and serve the district.
All right.
Okay? And then the Hunt project bids. We have Hunt, Michael Jones, I believe, is here tonight. And he is going to talk to you about the projects we've been looking at through Hunt Engineers. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Well,
so everybody knows me, Mike Jones from Hunt Engineers and Architects. Glad to be here tonight. We've been working with multiple projects for the district. There's a packet here that was handed out to you that identifies all the projects and where we are with each of them. The first one is the Francis Willard Water Infiltration Project. We've done a report there. We did some investigations as far as where the water was coming into the cafetorium. We we were able to snake a underground storm line. It comes from the roof gutters, comes into the building. We found a clean out there and traced it down and actually found a clock. We have a video of that. It's pretty much right on the wall that's buried on the cafeteria. So we're pretty confident that that's the issue there. You know, the water's getting backed up underground. It's kind of a tough spot to get into. It's in a crawl space. So the report outlines a fix for that. We would recommend tying the gutters into a storm system outside of the building. We think that would be more feasible than trying to excavate inside the building footprint and expose those damaged lines. So the report outlines that. There's also a proposal for us to do the design services of that project. The report was to identify the issue and a potential solution. So there is a proposal here attached that you can review that we could proceed with that design. So that's all in the packet. Do you have any specific questions about that project? Okay. So the next project is Neil Armstrong, the HVAC issues there. We put together a report, our mechanical engineer did. They've been coordinating with CP3, who did the energy performance contract there. I'm calling it an interim report because we still do have some work to do, I believe, coordinating with them. We've identified some deficiencies with the controls and relayed that to CP3, and their response was coming back with some issues about broken fans. We reported that the controls were not working properly, or the units were unable to be controlled, and they were saying that some of that was because of a bad motor, broken switch, or filters need to be clogged. So that's more of a maintenance item that CP3 is saying needs to be done.
Mr. Jones, is that in the scope of their work, or that they're saying that that's in the scope of the school district?
I guess I'm not sure on that yet. We need to coordinate further with CP3 on that. I want to get together with them and actually, we can identify which areas aren't being controlled, and if they want to put together this list of issues that they think are wrong in the units, then we would share that with you. I believe they're saying that those are more maintenance items for the district.
Before we move forward, sorry, Mr. Laffey, Mr. Brazil isn't here. Do you know, when it comes to the HVAC units that Mr. Jones is speaking about, was that in the scope of the work for the ESCO project?
I don't know the answer to that.
Mr. Schuster, there was some work done by CP3 at Armstrong. We've had a lot of mishaps this winter with the heating in that building, and I believe Michael talked to CP3.
Right.
And there are some issues that CP3 is saying are not what they did in the district, that they're our responsibility. Is that correct?
At this time, that's what we interpreted it as. Yeah. I want to finish this process.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. So going forward, we could just watch for that. That's something that's in the scope of that work.
Yeah.
Keep it in the scope of that.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I just meant that we'll finish that report for that project. There's work still to be done on our end and on CP3, so we'll present more information to you on that.
Thank you.
Okay, the next project is John Whittier Playground. That is currently out for bid to the contractor. I believe Mr. Laffey talked to you about going through the Keystone Purchasing Network. So, kind of a step-by-step on that is we're planning to issue a report to the city about some findings we found at the city-owned street, Galvin Place. So there's a piece of a curb that was missing there. That really, the water runs down that curb that's missing and into the neighbor's property. We don't feel that that is the responsibility of the district. So we're going to, make the city aware of that. We feel we can do that to assist the district. There's other areas in the playground area that we are addressing, and that's out to bid.
Pardon me, I don't think we have
John,
Or is it,
Whittier.
is there any?
You don't have a packet that looks like this?
I do, but I don't see Whittier in here. I
Yeah,
see-
we don't have Whittier.
That's just number 3 here on the
Yeah,
front page.
okay.
Oh, so there is a corresponding.
I don't, no, not for that
Okay.
one, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I'm just going through the items on number 3. So, as I stated, we're planning to send that to the city. The other areas there that we think will, help with the runoff, there's runoff coming down the hill through the playground area. It's pretty evident when you go up there, look at that, all the mulch from the playground is kind of eroded and run off and down the hill to the neighbor's adjacent property. So the current set of drawings that are out for bid include redirecting the stormwater by putting a curve around the playground, also regrading that portion inside the curve to be more flattened out to the road rather than towards the adjacent house. There's an alternate, which we determined during the design to do as an alternate. You'll be able to see base bid for the curb and the regrading, and an alternate to do more effective drainage underneath. We would do a sub-base and a perforated under drain underneath the new wood mulch surface of the playground. And to make that per code, you would need to tie that to a rain garden so it naturally infiltrates. That's really the setup of the design there. And we're still looking at a ballpark construction of $100,000 to $200,000 there. And we're thinking base bid $100,000, alternates maybe closer to $200,000. We're not totally sure. We're waiting that final pricing still from the contractor through the KPN, which is through Gordian Group, and S.J. Thomas is the contractor. I was anticipating the quotes today, but I got a call at like 2 o'clock. They said they couldn't have it. So we need to do more work on getting what they need. They want to have a meeting on site to review the existing conditions, which I think is going to be beneficial. We don't want to rush the number and have a number come through that's not accurate and not, maybe competitive or low with what you need. So we're looking to set that meeting up and then get the prices back. I told them no later than June 19th, those prices.
So we're going to miss, our date was, our goal was tonight to have the board vote on these, but they can't vote on them without the cost attached to them. So this will be pushed to our August meeting.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if there's, we can discuss maybe a different route to get Whittier approved. I'm not sure if there is. I mean, the West Scranton is in the same boat as that, and I think we need to talk about the schedule on that one.
Yeah, I received something late today from St. Thomas Company.
Yeah, that's attached in the back for West Scranton.
For the science lab.
Yeah. Which I can get to that one next if you want.
Yes, please.
I'm not sure what route you want to go. I don't know if there's a way to have a special meeting or something to, when we get these costs back, to award the contract. I mean, John Whittier we've heard can easily be done this summer, during the summer school break. Doesn't involve a lead time of any materials, so they can get the stuff they need and get it done pretty quickly.
Basically, it's like a swamp over there now.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure it is.
and all the debris has been going in the neighbor's yard.
Yeah.
How quickly can you get prices?
I'll check with him again. He was saying he could have it the end of this week, but I didn't want to give you guys another date and have it not come through with the quote. I'm kind of playing middleman here with the contractor, so.
You have children that use that space, and right now it's unusable because of the conditions, am I correct?
Right.
You got debris going in the neighbor's yard, so I think it might be to our best interest to have a special meeting, maybe just for that purpose.
Right.
And if there's...
I imagine we're having a recovery meeting soon, right? So why not have the same night as that? I mean, we're going to be somewhere, maybe not here.
That might be a good
together
idea.
so we can accomplish that.
The other thing is, we're not gonna be able to finish this work before the final day of school, so it's gonna be done over the summer anyway, so.
Yes, that's what the plan is.
But
Yeah.
we'd like to be able to have the kids to, during the fall season, be able to use that now.
Yeah, no, I'd appreciate that.
And I'm sure the neighbor would be ecstatic not having more debris going in their yard.
Right.
Wasn't-
I'll crunch the numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
was
not
a
me, but
reason
I'll work
given
on it.
that the numbers couldn't be available for this evening? I feel as though we've been talking about this a very long time.
You know, that's a good question, Ms. Gilmartin, because I had to get in the swing of things with the way Hunt actually does their work. So, Michael, do you want to explain to the board what you explained to me, that how you start a project and you have different phases
Right.
before you finally get to the final pricing? So would you share with them what you shared with me?
Yeah, I mean, when we were, I guess, approved to proceed with the projects for design, there was, for both projects, for Whittier and the West Scranton Science Labs, there's multiple design phases. So we start with schematic design and develop that design and try to give updates of construction cost budgeting in each phase. So, it involved different meetings with Dr. Kirian and Mr. Laffey about, this is the scope of work. We decided what would be base bid, what would be alternate on the playground, and kind of went from there. It came to bidding, which was, I want to say 3 weeks ago, when we were going to put them out to bid. Typically, a project of these sizes would go out to public bid for 4 weeks. So we saw the KPN as a way to expedite that. So it's not out for public bid. We're able to kind of streamline with KPN and get a quality contractor. We won't get a local contractor that maybe we don't know who they are or how they perform. So we saw the benefits for KPN. And, unfortunately, I said to the guy at KPN today, I'm pretty close to where I could have put it out for public bid, and we're in the same schedule. So that's kind of out of my hands. I know I've been pushing them to get it done, and I feel like we're still in line with where we would have been either way. It was just kind of when it was approved, how we worked through the design. It was really a tight schedule to begin with.
Michael,
It's summer construction.
KPN is similar to CoStar's type of bidding, just so you all know where that comes from.
Yeah, I think just the amount of work that we had to do to get the designs ready was already a tight schedule for construction this summer. I mean, a typical design project, you want to start, maybe even the year before, in the fall or winter, if you want to start the design then and proceed into summer construction. And we started it, first of the year or in the spring, and we were getting started on the design.
So just to clarify, these projects have been designed, we've paid for that, and we still don't have a realistic number of what the actual work will cost?
Correct.
Yes.
That doesn't seem like a great system to me. Thank you.
Any other questions specifically about that playground?
Yeah, can I just ask one, with your designs right now that you're talking about doing, with all this commotion about the Chesapeake Bay runoff and all this stuff, are there plans subject to change in the very near future? Like this Chesapeake thing with hard surfaces, runoff, and everything like that to control water flow. That is not going to affect your final results.
No, I don't believe so for this project. No.
So Michael, if you get the bids, let's say we gather again mid-June, you'll have all the pricing, the total cost of the projects,
Correct.
correct? And then you'll begin right away to be completed prior to the beginning of the school year?
Yes, that would be our goal for John Whittier, yes.
How about the others?
The West Scranton, I outlined on the second page of this handout. You can see item C is the schedule. That project involves replacement of casework. We were told during the bidding phase, the contractor was putting together the price, that this work could not happen during the summer due to the fact that of the fabrication of the casework. So you can see here I kind of outlined the process. Once you award the contracts, they have to get shop drawings in. That involves 4 to 6 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks for approvals. Then they start manufacturing the casework. There's also fumelets that take longer. You can see that, and then they ship it, then they install it. So I've kind of outlined the durations and then the potential completion dates of those. Is that item 4, letter C. And the options going forward, I think, now that we know it can't be done in the summer, would be you could potentially proceed with some of the abatement there and the minor casework demolition during the summer break, so we could get it started. You could allow the remaining casework, removals, the plumbing, the electrical installation, and connections to occur second shift in the fall while school's in session. So that could be an option. If that is an option, I do need to know that because I made an asterisk here that may affect their cost, the contractor's cost. They would need to plug in second shift labor work there. So it may be an increase in the cost. Or the next option is to hold off until construction until summer break of 2020.
Wow. That's a disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry to report that.
Yeah. Because I would not recommend to the board that we approach this project on the second shift where it would cost additional funding. We just can't afford to do that. So we'll talk again.
Okay.
So we're pulling this out of the board agenda?
Yes, we will not vote on these projects until we have the cost, and we will need to do it at a special meeting, hopefully at the recovery meeting, whenever that is this summer.
Yep.
Just for a moment to revisit the situation at Whittier, as Mr. Lesher mentioned, I know this is affecting a lot of the neighbors, and it indicates here that a report is being sent to the city about the curbing. What are we doing to advocate for these people? How can we help them? If the city's responsible for this damage, if we are responsible for this damage, and it's going on and on and on, how can we help?
The city, we've been talking to the city about this curbing for about a year and a half now. Michael's company took the initiative to actually go ahead and request them to fix the curbing as part of the project. Have you heard back from them yet?
We have not, no.
Yeah.
We've
So
had a verbal conversation with them, and we're planning to follow up with an official letter, which we'll send your way for review prior to sending.
So Katie, I believe you're asking, is there restitution for these people? Because
That's
the
one thing,
runoff
yes.
is from our property and from the fact that the city doesn't have the curb there. I'd have to ask Mr. Laffey to check with our insurance companies to see if there is anything that we could do, but I think part of the responsibility also has to be with the city. So we'll look into that.
I certainly would go on record to say whatever the city needs to do needs to be done.
Mr. Jones, do we think that the curbing is going to help this greatly? I've seen this lot. It's on a hill. There's an alley with a school parking lot behind it. I mean, that water's coming down that hill, and there's an old foundation of a home in there. So no matter what you do with that fill, that foundation of that home is going to come down in there. So to me, it seems like there's a good part in it. I mean, with the weather we're getting now, just the curbing alone is going to help that, or just mitigate it somewhat?
I think it was kind of two separate things. It's the curb, I mean, when we were fortunate enough to see it when it was raining, when we did our field work, right where the curb was pretty much a stream heading right for the house. So, that's one area. And then the playground, I think, is a different area, which is property you own, and the current design is in place to fix those issues. So I think we're kind of dealing with it that way, but I do think, yeah, it's going to, both of those combined will mitigate your issues, we believe.
Thank you.
Yep.
So it's a combination.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Jones?
If we do need to go ahead with the Francis Willard, the next steps there, we're ready to do that, so just let us know on that.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, are all of these projects on hold now, or are
They're ready for Willard, correct?
ready for Willard? Okay.
So are we
Thank you.
voting on that tonight?
Yes, we're voting on Willard. We're holding on West Scranton. We're holding on Whittier, correct? And we're holding on Armstrong.
Yeah, we're still working on our.
Yeah.
Willard would be the next, almost like phase 2 new design for Willard.
Right.
That's the proposal.
So your proposal is the design work for Willard.
Right.
To correct the problem in that basement area.
Correct.
Okay?
So that's what we're voting on tonight.
That's right, the design phase.
Correct.
Correct, Michael? Yeah. It is the design phase.
So when we get to that resolution, we're going to have to amend that.
That was forthcoming. We did not have that resolution ready for the packet, so.
Okay.
Or we could just make a motion to, I don't know, do you want me to go type something up?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
was
think
forthcoming.
yeah, just as we did D4. Okay?
And do we have a final cost on that? Because I see this is going anywhere between 85,000 to 100,000. But tonight we're just focused on the design.
Yes.
Yeah, I can speak a little more to that. So we're not the contractors. We don't know the final price of what the labor is and the material to do the work. We put together a preliminary construction cost budget of 85 to 100,000. And on the last page of the proposal, we recommend another 10% construction contingency on that for any unforeseen issues during construction. Our fees would be included in that. There's other estimated incidental costs, like if you have to advertise for bid, if you do this in public bidding, and you have to advertise for bid, if there's any construction testing required during construction, that would be included in that other 12% incidental cost. And that bills you to your total project cost. So, we've started with the design as an incidental cost, and we're ultimately working towards our total project cost. All of that is not known at this time until the pieces start coming together. And, I was hoping to have more pieces in place tonight, but I just need a couple more weeks. So that's kind of the update tonight, is we need some more pieces to the puzzle.
All right, let me just clarify. I need to understand. For the Willard project, you're ready to go into the design phase.
Correct.
Do you have a cost for the design phase?
Yes, that's included in
Okay, so that is what the board will be voting on tonight, so that you can move forward in the design phase.
Correct.
And what is that number?
That's in the report right here, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, we have survey, $2,500, and the design for $8,500, plus reimbursables, estimated at.
So that's this compensation summary on page 3. Part
Correct.
A, Part B, and the $2,000 for the reimbursable expenses.
Correct.
Okay. So then, is that listed here, project and construction budget summary, AE fees and reimbursables, $13,000?
Yep.
Okay.
So that's what Virginia is going to get a resolution prepared for that. And
For the
only that for tonight. Okay? Ready, good?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Mr. Lesh, did you do health and safety?
Yes, there's also a resolution under the consent, approve the backcourt route use for Scranton High School.
Okay, thank you. Director Borthwick?
Under Human Resources, there's a resolution to approve personnel report, includes retirements, assignments, appointments, leaves of absences, and resignations. And under Labor Relations, there'll be a resolution to approve the Lake Scranton Urgent Care Agreement for medical services.
And is that, is it F2? That's
Yes.
Lake Scranton, is that going on consent or will that be read?
Well, you've had an opportunity to hear about it and discuss it. Mr. Carmody is here tonight. If you'd like him to speak of it just one more time.
Now
we can put it on consent. Yeah, Mr. Carmody?
Jump on your committee.
Good evening, once again. The medical services agreement is with a urgent care facility, Lake Scranton Urgent Care. What this is an agreement for 1 year with the district and Lake Scranton Urgent Care LLC. It is for the members of the union, members of employees of the district. It's a waiver of the copay, as well as a 5% discount on all insurance billable charges. This also applies to the dependents of the employees as well. This does not affect the current health care coverage of district employees. This is simply a waiver of the copay, as well as a 5% discount on the billable charges.
And you've spoken to the collective bargaining units?
Yes, we presented this draft proposal to the unions for their comment, input, questions, and we've had those discussions and answered any and all questions that the unions have had.
Matt, may I ask, Matt, is this just really an incentive? If employees choose to go to that particular healthcare provider, they'll get an additional discount?
Yes, it's an incentive for the employee and their dependents to receive a waiver of copays and a discount on their billables.
Thank you. So could you just explain how this came about or where this originated from?
The district's third-party administrator, Millennium, brought this to our attention recently and really communicated it as a win-win for the district in terms of saving money for the members. But this was brought to the attention by Millennium, specifically Sarah Picard.
And Matt, it's strictly optional for our employees whether or not they want to take advantage of this.
Strictly optional. There's nothing to compel the members to go to this particular facility. So if there's an urgent care facility elsewhere, they're certainly permitted to go there. This is simply just an incentive to go to this particular facility.
And this facility, who do they usually service? It's just a regular urgent care facility?
Yes, yeah, and in the proposal, it outlines the services that they provide, but it's all anything that's already covered under the current health care coverage of the employee would be covered at this facility if they do offer that particular service. Obviously, if it's something else, that requires a specialty, then they obviously wouldn't go there, they would go somewhere else. But for the parameters of an urgent care facility, that's what they're providing.
So just Millennium, as our healthcare consultant, just was looking to search out different ways to save us money on healthcare, and they come upon this group.
Yeah, and I think that's probably part of their job, is to continually to seek out ways that the district can save money and save members money. And I think this is one example of, okay, there's a company out here that's willing to provide a discount to go to this facility. Nobody's compelling, or nobody's forcing this agreement, but it's simply something that if a district employee wishes to utilize, then they would realize that savings. If they don't wish to utilize this facility, they're not forced to. So it's an agreement, I think, that it is a win-win. We presented it to the union members, or to the unions. They presented it. Really, the only question I think the unions had was, does this change anything about our current health care coverage? And the answer to that is no. This is just a company that's out there offering this discount to come to this facility.
But this doesn't actually realize savings for the district. It is for the employee, correct?
For the employee, yes. Yeah.
That's a good thing as well, just to clarify.
Correct.
So you save the copay, you might save 3 hours of sitting in an ER going up there. I mean, I think it's a nice option.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Policy. We will have resolution first read revisions for 006, 006.1, 150, 220, 335, 337, 606, 610, 913, and 004BOG-2. I do have a few things, but since this is first read, would you prefer that I share them with Bert and they come back to us revised?
Sure.
Is that, are you sure you don't want to go through each and every one right now? Come on. They are simple things, not changing the tone. So I will do that, and then you'll get the updates in your packets.
So, just so the board is aware, with Ms. Keating leaving, I am taking policy away from Bert Janalezza. It will not be under his area anymore. He is going to pick up the whole testing piece and become the district coordinator. So beginning July 1, I will be doing policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Schuster?
For the Special Education Committee tonight, we'll have a resolution to approve a settlement agreement, and that will be in the consent agenda. And then we have a presentation from the Special Education Department.
Okay, Ms. Baddock? Bill, are you going to? Okay, Bill's good.
Yep, I'm fine. Here you go, Sharon.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so good evening. I'm here tonight to present an update on the Special Education Department, especially in light of the different things going on in the district, specifically the ATSI and of course our budget, our ongoing budget concerns and initiatives. This first slide that I'm going to share with you just highlights the current initiatives that we're working on in the department. The first is that we are updating the existing special education procedural manual. So the district already has a pretty extensive procedural manual that was developed before I got here. Just needs to be updated, and this is a manual that has already been distributed throughout the district and is maintained in all of the buildings, and to my knowledge, all the employees received a copy under the former director. We're also conducting, I have here a historical overview of the special education litigation, approximately 10 years worth of litigation we're going to take a look at in a moment. We are working on developing a professional development plan. A plan exists right now. We're really looking to enhance the plan that exists to better address the current needs of the district. We're working on community outreach efforts. And lastly, we're looking at budget and fiscal considerations. Many of these initiatives, like I said, mirror the objectives detailed in the ATSI action plans. So the first, I'm not going to go through all of these, but the first slide there highlights all of the contents in the current procedure manual and some of the...
Sharon, I'm just going to ask right there, I want the board to understand that we do have a procedural manual. We have had this manual in place for the past several years now. It is updated when each new director comes in and when there are changes in special ed law. The manual has been distributed prior to Sharon coming here to our principals and our special education staff members. So it is quite extensive, and I think what is important in Sharon's slide here is that you just take a look at the contents that are in that manual. And they follow, federal IDEA guidelines. So I think that's a really important piece, because a lot of times you're feeling like we don't have procedures in place. We have procedures in place, and I believe Sharon talked about continual training of our staff is essential in order for them to understand and implement these procedures.
Thank you, Dr. Karian. And just to add a few things to that, it's important to understand the very fluid nature of special education, and that this manual is ever changing, because the law is always changing, legislation is always moving forward, and even probably the most dynamic component in all of this is case law, which every day is evolving, and all of that is influencing legislation and what we're doing in special education departments across the state of Pennsylvania, and for that matter, the greater country. So our goal is to continue to update this in my department, and then we're going to train the administrators and all the staff on the updates, and then distribute the manual again to all the employees. The principals will present to their staff, I will present to the special education teachers, and myself and the executive team will present to the principals. This next slide is an overview of our litigation complaints from 2010 until the present time. And the thing that I'm very interested in having you, I think, focus on are the trends. So if you look at the trends from 2010 through, in particular, all the way through 2019, there's an average of about 15 lawsuits per year. Some years were heavier in lawsuits than others. We have identified a correlation in some of these numbers, which I'm going to mention in a moment. In addition to the number of complaints being at an average of 15, compensatory education amounts and plaintiff attorney's fees have seen a downward trend overall, with the exception of 2 areas that are very pronounced when you look at the numbers on this slide. And they are areas where transition occurred in the district, one being the transition of superintendents around the year of 2014-15, and then the second one having been last year when my predecessor left, and for that year, the department went through a very heavy transition because Mrs. Cartegna was working on a part-time basis per diem while the board and the district looked for a new special education director. The good news is that this year, there's been a significant reduction in all straight across from the number of complaints through compensatory ed and attorney's fees. And of course, we're hoping that we continue to keep our expenses at a minimum as far as litigation. And I'm going to talk to you guys about how we're looking to do that and how we've accomplished to already have a dramatic reduction. So what we've been doing is extracting information from that litigation. I've gone through the 37 cases from last year and the 7 cases from this year pretty extensively, as well as probably 50 additional cases that were sort of available to me and lingering in my central office location. The first thing that we've done is continue to identify patterns within these complaints. Problem areas with programming, paperwork, and procedures, which I'm going to talk again about in a moment. Focus areas among the attorneys for plaintiffs. So what we've come to realize, what I've come to realize is that the parent attorneys tend to focus on areas in patterns. And as I recognize where they're going to focus, we can then, it starts as a reaction, but then we can use it to proactively, preemptively prevent future litigation by knowing, and I'll just give you an example. There was a phase where everything was about speech and language. So every complaint had to do with an undetected speech and language impairment. So we got ahead of that and we started to talk to the staff and train our special education staff and work with our speech and language pathologists on really making sure that we're not missing anything. So I think it's important for us to keep looking at the complaints and really analyzing what they look like, but also what the attorneys are presenting during resolution sessions. The next is unnecessary demands for independent evaluations. That's another thing that has gone on, and I think myself and my predecessor have tried to really reduce that. And I know there's been a significant reduction since I've been here in the number of independent evaluations that we approve as a district. And what that means to those of you who aren't familiar is that when the attorneys come in, oftentimes they ask for an evaluation outside of our evaluative team. And that's very costly. It could cost anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 per student to have independent evaluations done. And if they do the whole gamut, which sometimes they ask for, you could be looking at $15,000 just for testing. And quite frankly, I think we have an excellent evaluation team in the district right now. We're short on psychologists, God knows, but the people who we're contracting with are very good, and the remaining psychologists that we have on board is very good. All of our speech and language people are very good. So it's very frustrating when they go outside and ask for an independent, but the law allows them to do that. And the district cannot tell them no if they insist on getting independent. It is part of procedural safeguards, allows them to do that. So it's a lot of work on our end to kind of negotiate that out of a settlement. The next is the establishment of guidelines for settlement agreements, and I think this has been very impactful. The first is limitations placed on funds spent on technology devices. So all of the current resolutions, we cap how much money can be spent on computers in a defined amount of time. So maybe $5,000 toward technology over the life of the compensatory education fund, which is good because what we were seeing years and years ago was that people were buying a new computer every year and they want $4,000, $5,000 computers. So they were running through the funds very quickly. And our goal is, even though we award these funds to these people because, you know, the district has accepted some onus in liability, the goal is to manage the funds so that any remaining funds come back to the district. And we have been fortunate to receive many funds back into the district over the course of the past year and a half. The next is the elimination of third-party trust management of funds. So the district had been historically allowing two third-party agencies to manage the compensatory ed funds, which one cost the district money because they cost us money to manage. They cost us a fee. It costs us a fee to manage the money. And secondly, we don't have any discretion over how the money's spent. So anything that comes through my office in terms of a comp ed request for spending is scrutinized by myself, and we either approve or disapprove, and then we have to substantiate that decision with the parents and sometimes the attorneys. But again, the goal is always to make sure that we're managing that money responsibly. So the money is staying here. There's been no money put in trust since I came aboard. The next is clarification in language. So what we wanted to do, school code allows us to substitute name brands. So what we find is that a lot of families want like Bose everything or Apple everything. So what we've done is we've written into, and our attorneys have been really excellent with helping me with all of this because I couldn't write the legal language that they're writing that allows us to really negotiate and then substitute brands. So instead of, I don't know, $700 Bose headset, we'll get a $75, I don't know, some of the Panasonic headphone. And that's been very cost saving to the district through combat funds. And the last is limitations placed on funds spent on post-secondary education. We are not allowing students to go through degree programs with compensatory ed funds. That was done years ago. We unfortunately, we're still paying for some colleges for degree programs. That said, we do pay for vocational education and training for these students. So that is allowed to come out of comp ed, but we don't pay for college programming. The last thing on this slide is the formalization of process surrounding litigation. So one is we're continuing to really maintain accurate records. I think that probably started a few years ago. I'm going to say it probably started in 2014-15, where the department really started to keep track of things. And so we have much more comprehensive files now. The next is district management of compensatory funds, which I already mentioned. The next is team meetings to increase accountability, which I've spoken to you guys about in the past, where we have the teams come in and we speak to them about litigation so they understand the root cause of the litigation. And just so you guys understand, because you guys get the summary from me every month, part of what you see is not an entirely accurate picture of what led to the litigation. It's what the attorneys, the opposing counsel, have based the claims on. But it could quite frankly be something as simple as they're aggravated that their student was suspended or kicked off the bus or denied participation in a dance or a field trip. Typically, much more typical than not, is that the parent is frustrated about something other than what you guys are seeing in those summaries. But those summaries are what allows for legal substantiation of the claim. Does that make sense to you all? I don't put that in the summary because sometimes I'm not even certain why the parent went to an attorney. All we can do is try to minimize what the attorneys find in terms of finding us liable for something. And the last is dissemination of resolution meetings outcomes. So that just means after our resolution sessions, we present a summary to the teams so that we can learn from the outcome and hopefully moving forward avoid a similar suit. The next slide is professional development, which again is very important. And since I've been here, we've done a lot of professional development. Dr. Kirian, last year at the principals retreat, at the team retreat in the summer, she brought in Sweet Stevens and they did a fantastic job. It was very comparable to the Lehigh Law conferences that I've attended. They did a really excellent job. I just think we need to continue to do that because as we all know, and every principal that stood before you earlier, buy-in takes time, and it takes a lot of time to shift a culture. So to change everybody's opinions about how we do things and have everybody take onus for special education is going to take time and ongoing professional development. We did invite PDE and Patent to do an audit, which I've told you about before. I'm going to talk about those recommendations super quickly on the next slide. We are in the process of developing an internal IEP monitoring team. This was actually the suggestion of Dr. Kieran, and I think it's a fantastic idea. So we're going to have some teachers trained to come in and work with us in the summer. They'll of course be compensated, but to really look at our IEPs, not for compliance, but for content. When the state comes in, they don't look for content. They're looking for compliance. When the attorneys come in, they're looking at content. So we really need to get better at looking at content. And then we can use the teachers on a yearly basis to help audit some of these files so that we can draw from them, learn from them, and then share that information out with the rest of the district teachers. The last area is targeted training for teachers and principals, and this will be a multi-year professional development plan, but the areas that I know are in imminent need of being addressed are the pre-referral process, the evaluation process, writing defensible IEPs, progress monitoring and compliance, disability eligibility categories, placement decisions, and passive restraint and behavioral intervention training. That's the state crisis management training. That's a big one. It's important. It's very important for the district, but it's a very extensive training process. It takes about 12 hours to get full certification. So we've struggled to try to find time to train staff, because it's hard to put 12 hours together to train people and not take away from the other trainings that are also very critical to the operations of the district. So we're going to continue to work on a plan to do that for next year. The next slide is the PDE and patent findings. I'm not going to run through all this, because basically what PDE and patent found are ways that we can improve upon our own IEP writing and evaluation processes. So that's what this slide really is. You can read it at your own leisure. I'm definitely not going to read through this now. But again, it's guidance for me in working with the staff. The next slide highlights our efforts in community outreach. We are going to be creating, and I've met with members of the community already, a parent advocacy committee. We will meet quarterly. We're also developing a parent advisory team. We're hoping that that team will be comprised of people who are familiar enough with procedural safeguards to be able to advise parents on what they should do and how they can handle situations when they become frustrated or uncertain about special education, rather than going to an attorney. Because the goal is to build trust within the community so that they come to us and they don't go to an attorney. Many times since I've been here, I've met with parents who, if only I had gone to them before they went to the attorney, I think we could have resolved things without the need for litigators. But the problem is that once the parent attorneys kind of get in there, they don't release them back, and then they just keep them. So if we can get them to come to us first, and I think through the development of a parent team, it might start to facilitate that level of trust that we need to really affect future change. The next is community agency partnership. So I will be meeting with all of the community agencies. We've already reached out to them. They're coming in for a training on our evaluation process, and in particular our pre-evaluation process, so that they understand how Scranton is doing things and they don't jump to evaluation, because that's an area that we see a lot of challenges where parents write letters for us to test their students, and if they do that, then by law we have to test. So we're trying to educate everyone that has a relationship with the district, all the stakeholders, the agencies, the parents, the students, everybody. The next is an open house at Electric City Academy. We had an open house last year, but it was for other districts, so we're going to hold 2 this year. One will be for other districts so that they can come and see the facility, because it has a lot to offer, and I do think it's uncomparably the best around. And then another one for the parents. A lot of parents have asked for that, and I think it's important to offer that to them. The next is an update of our website.
Excuse me, so do you have any date set for an open house?
I'm sorry?
I apologize, I scared you.
I'm so gross than I thought.
That was my question as well.
So do you have a date set? And if you do, I mean, we've never been over there. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago when it first opened, we were supposed to have a meeting scheduled there, and then we were told it wasn't ready, and then we were told again it wasn't ready. But I think it'd be great if we coordinated an open house with one of our meetings. So you not only get the parents there, they can actually come and participate in our meeting.
I think that would be fantastic. And I think you guys who haven't seen it will be really pleasantly surprised by how really well done it is. Yeah, it's very impressive. I'm very impressed. As someone who's new to Scranton, I'm very impressed. I've never been to a center that is as nice as that one. I'm going to be quiet about that. The next is the dissemination of the program information. So again, last year I showed you guys, we made those trifolds. We have to get better at distributing them. And again, that's kind of a shift because it's a new piece to our process. So we have them, and the people who receive them are appreciative to have them, but we haven't been really diligent in making sure they get passed out at every meeting and during registration. So we have to get better at that. And the last is a parent night presentation. So I'm going to have a presentation, just an overview on special education for the community at Scranton High School, more than likely Scranton High School, where we'll invite the public to come in so that we can present an overview of what special education is, how it operates, and what we have in terms of programming available to the students of the district. The next slide is budget and fiscal considerations. And We're always looking at different ways to save money. I know that special education is a very costly program. It's a very costly program everywhere, and I know that we don't get enough funds to cover it, but we are working on that. The first is to reduce costs associated with contracted employees. In an effort to do that, I've already been in negotiations with our contractors, and they're very aware of Scranton's position, and I have to say that they have been very amenable to adjusting their pricing for us, which is very surprising because they've come down pretty significantly in some instances, and last year, they wouldn't budge. But this year, when I said we're going to have to look for other vendors because we just can't afford this anymore, they came back and they offered us lower rates. So I'm very happy with that. In addition, we're always looking to restructure assignments based on changing caseloads so that we're maximizing our staff. And if we don't need contracted people, then we will let them go. We do have a few contracted people that I keep month to month so that we can take a pause if we have to in their contracts. The next is analysis of potential cost benefit of hiring versus contracting. And this is something that we've all talked about before. The speech and language pathologist, which Mr. Lappy mentioned earlier, the psychologists and the personal care assistants are very costly to the district. The next slide is going to demonstrate, I think it's the next slide is going to demonstrate that. We've looked at all of those numbers before and we can look at them again, but I'm always looking at whether it would be more cost effective. And I think before we rushed to make that decision, and I know Dr. Kieran agrees, we were waiting to see if our numbers changed at all, because we don't want to hire if the numbers are going to change. And I know you guys have expressed concern about that before, but if our numbers hold steady and in fact grow, which has been the trend, which is 2 slides away, then it would at some point probably be more financially beneficial to the district to look to hire as opposed to continuing to contract some of these people. The next is expanding the center-based program, which again, thank you guys for allowing us to add those 2 new classrooms. They'll be open in September. This will allow us to increase outside district enrollment, which is going to continue to offset center costs. And at this point, the center really does pay for itself, which is really great for Scranton, because as you'll see in one of the slides that are coming up, if we take just our Scranton students out of there and put them in programs to meet their needs, it'll be in excess of $7 million just for student programming. So it is really great that Scranton has that program. The last is the expansion of access billing to try to bring back more revenue through access to the district. We do now have a full-time access billing clerk. She's doing a great job. She's learning her job. She's working with the state, and she's really working to increase billing revenue. We now bill for PCAs, and we also bill for psychologists, and that was not being done in the past. The next slide is just that comparison. And I'm not going to go through this whole slide, but you can just, if you just simply look at the annual salary of the contracted in blue versus the annual salary of the Scranton School District employee in the same position, and that includes benefits and retirement, it's a dramatic difference. And this is based on the number of contracted people we have right now. So there's 10 speech and language contracted, 10 PCAs contracted, 2 behavior techs. You can read this for yourselves later, but it would, again, if these numbers hold steady and we have the need for these employees, it would be more cost effective for the district to hire as opposed to continue to contract.
I think significantly on that page, the last blue column that says overall cost and the SSC overall cost, and then the last column differential, you'll see the difference of what we're paying by using a provider as opposed to hiring our own staff.
Okay, and again, you guys have seen this slide as well. It just illustrates the fact that special education is continuing on an upward trend in terms of identified student population. And that makes all of this very challenging because we're continuing to see growth. That number is already higher than 21.1 right now. And I anticipate it continuing to grow. Certainly I don't know that we're going to have dramatic decreases at any time in the foreseeable future. So it's a challenge to continually try to limit costs when the population and the needs are growing. The next slide is just Monticello growth. And again, you've seen that slide before as well. It just shows the number of students in the program. Now, these are the students that I'm talking about on the next slide. So if we took those 135 students and we put them out into placements, and these placements are reasonable. We have many districts, or many placements that exceed $74,252. But just based on those average rates, it would be around $7 million. If we were to shut down Monticello today, it would be $7 million in costs to provide programming to our own Scranton students. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions for me?
That was really enlightening. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I really appreciate all the information.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Sharon.
Sharon, thank you. That was an excellent presentation, and much of the material is not new to the board members, but I think sometimes, you know, we forget where we are in trying to manage the special ed department. So my suggestion would be if you could keep that PowerPoint close by, so when we talk about these things, you'll have a reference to where we are and how much progress we've made up to this point.
Director McAndrew, Federal Relations.
Okay. Tonight we'll have a resolution to award the 2019 general supply bid. We'll also have a resolution to award the 2019 janitorial supplies bid. Mr. Lapp, I have a quick question. So I actually looked at the resolution that goes along with the janitorial supplies bid. I thought the direction we were going to move in was look for like a global provider for the chemicals, where they, I know we had the discussion where, you know, they can warehouse most of that product first and reduce costs, where they can set up systems and then distribute or dispense the product, so it's not done by free pouring, which is expensive. What did they entertain a bid, or it just happened, or what?
So with the summer approaching, that being the busiest time a lot for our maintenance, you'll notice that specifically on that janitorial bid, a lot of those products that you're referencing are on a as-needed basis, on a drawdown basis. We're not purchasing volume as we explore that exact system that you're talking about. So to get us through, and there's no delay in maintaining any of our schools as we prepare for starting next school year, that's why that's specifically written that way, to be as an as-needed drawdown while we look to go to a universal system as we speak.
All right, so that system will be for next year. Is that what we're saying, or you're saying?
It will be coming very soon. We have not started the process of bidding that service yet at this time.
So the bids we're awarding for how, what length of time, period of time?
Well, it's for a year, but it's for an as-needed basis. We can switch it and completely
Okay, no, thanks for clarifying, because we do have a need.
Sorry.
Talk about it.
And while we're on that subject, the same thing occurs with paint, and that's something that we've always done that, right?
We didn't always used to do it, but probably within the last 3 or 4 years, yes, it's on an as-needed basis. So when projects come up that need to be done, we're not purchasing. We're purchasing at that time. We're not warehousing and storing gallons and gallons of paint.
Okay, so yeah, for the last couple of years, we're putting that out there, we're getting that price locked in.
It locks it in for a year, and as we need it, we can access it.
Thank you. Okay, we'll also have a resolution to award the 2019 lumber bid, a resolution to award the 2019 medical bid, a resolution to award the 2019 music bid, a resolution to award the 2019 paint, painting supplies, and equipment bid, a resolution to award 2019 art supplies, and a resolution to award the 2019 sports equipment bid. That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Andrew.
So, Mr. Lappy, with all of these bids, and I know that, you know, general supplies are going one place, janitorial supplies going another. The painting supplies, art supplies, and that, it's district-wide?
Yes, district-wide.
It's being spread out district-wide?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. And the lumber bid, we're buying lumber for?
It is, that's exclusively for the industrial arts classes.
And our sports supplies bid, does that number seem large, or can you give us a rundown on what we're purchasing there for sports supplies?
I believe it seems consistent with prior years. I mean, it's specifically sports equipment, maybe sports-specific scorebooks, sports-specific athletic gear, baseballs, basketballs, things of that nature.
No, like extremely large purchases, just small items across the board.
Correct.
Okay. And all of these bids and all of these numbers are consistent across the
one year to the next?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's no exaggerative increases that we've seen. I mean, there's fluctuations in prices every year, but it's, the ordering's been consistent with past practice. The paper bid, there was a higher request for more reams of paper this year. However, when we checked with the supplier, we have a little bit excess from our prior order, so we scaled that back down. We are locking in the price, and if a need arises where, we are short, we can still access that at this awarded price.
Okay, yeah, just making sure they're comparable across at least the last few years.
Correct.
Thank you.
Do you feel as though, have these still been impacted by the vendor reach out from the previous year, or have things kind of bounced back to where we were?
Well, no, I mean, this is the most competitive price you will receive. So I think that, the reach out was very positive and beneficial, and I think we're probably still recognizing some of that with this, and going out competitively for these pricings. And it's important to note that we're awarding on an individual line item basis, so not one company's getting the janitorial bid, they're getting what they were the lowest for of those items. So I think that's saving us the most money there.
And that is to be a tremendous amount of work, so that's great.
Takes a while to file.
Thank you. Anything else?
Mrs. Dixon, I'd like to make a recommendation based on I think Mr. McAndrew, that we have a meeting at Electric City Academy. I'm going to ask for the August 5th meeting prior to school starting. Can we change the location of that meeting?
Yeah, no problem.
Would everybody be okay with that?
Schedule the open house, obviously.
Well, we'll schedule the open house and your board meeting, right?
Sounds great.
Yeah, sounds good. August 5th, Virginia, Electric City Academy. Okay.
As long as you have the work session? No, wait, okay, sorry,
Yes, is that okay?
We don't have a regular scheduled meeting, so do you want that to be a special meeting?
I thought on my calendar I have August 5th as a board meeting. No?
No, I thought it was we go more toward the opening of school, wasn't it?
That was the discussion we had around policy.
Yeah.
That we weren't, the reason we didn't meet in August was because things might not be ready, even though we talked about the potential of adding that August meeting.
We usually call a special meeting sometime in the middle of August to the end of August for some items, so we can certainly have a meeting that night.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be till September.
That's fine.
Is that fine? Okay, how about our September meeting at Electric City Academy?
I just want to add one quick thing. There's no auditorium there. There's
We'll
a
make it
gym and
work.
a cafeteria though.
I've already spoken to Mr. Basilega. So what is the date, Virginia?
September, is it the 3rd? Or do you have your calendar?
I have September 3rd is the next board meeting.
Okay, September 3rd, ECA.
That would be a Tuesday, right?
That's Tuesday, September 3rd.
Okay. Virginia, you'll do your magic there, right? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have the motion to adjourn?
I just have one quick thing under new business, and I won't hold this up anymore than I have to, but I think it's a good PSA. I was contacted by Mr. Pedro Nez, who's been a good friend to the district, and they're having a COP season opener for the cultivated version for the SSD kids and Hurricane Maria evacuees. And I just got this information maybe about an hour or so, or maybe 2 hours ago, so this is very new. But he was asking that maybe we could put this out on our website and maybe contact our IT department and Mr. Arnett specifically. He's the point of contact for this to get the specific details, and I believe he has some things to help our Hurricane Maria evacuees and a lot more Puerto Rican refugee students. So I just thought it was a good public service announcement, and maybe we could get the specifics hammered out with Mr. Arnett and Dr. Cherry and contact him and go through our IT to get that out a little bit more. The date for that is 6/9/2019, and it's at the Lackawanna County Stadium. Thank you.
You know, while we're on that subject, last year when we went over for the to Lackawanna County, the Rail Riders did say the district is welcome to reach out to do some events, you know, when we're having picnics at the school and things. Did we ever reach out to them and
Round Noon does reach out to them, yes.
have they been helping out at any of the spring picnics and things like that?
Yeah. So 6/9 is when this is
Okay, motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. So we can move right into the board meeting. We already have the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem, so we'll start the board meeting June 3rd with the roll call, right?
Yes, please. Mr. Borthwick?
Present.
Mr. Duffy?
Present.
Mr. Martin? Present. Mr. Lush?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present?
Mr. Norton?
Yes.
Mr. Fogle?
Present.
Mr. Schuster?
Here.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 present.
And then the next thing on this agenda that's revised, we would be honor and recognizing Cesar Acosta.
I have that resolution here with my name on it.
Okay.
To the members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent and Vocational Education Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas the Skills USA Pennsylvania Championships are state-level competitions for public high school and college students enrolled in trade, technical, and skilled service professional instruction programs, including allied health occupations. And whereas Hershey, Pennsylvania is the host site each year for the Skills USA Pennsylvania Conference, with leadership events taking place at the conference in Hershey, PA, and skill competitions are hosted at the Lebanon County Exposition Center and various school sites. And whereas Cesar Acosta, a 12th grade student at West Scranton High School and Career Technology Center, was a gold medalist at the Skills USA Pennsylvania Championship in Computer Systems and Cybersecurity. And whereas Cesar will be representing Pennsylvania at the National Skills USA Leadership and Skills Conference in Louisville, Kentucky on June 24th through 28th. 2019, and will be attending Johnson College in the fall for computer information technology. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the official congratulations of the Scranton School Board is extended to Cesar Acosta, his mother, Yanette Abro, the administration, and all of his teachers at West Scranton High School and the Career Technology Center. Respectfully submitted.
On the question?
I just want to say something on the question. This is a big deal. I don't know if you guys realize that. But Skills USA is a national organization that relates to the content area. So I have culinary kids that participate. Every shop gets the opportunity to participate. But it's usually done first in-house. You compete against your class. And then you move on and compete at the district level with maybe 15 other vocational schools in the area. And to achieve gold at that. And then he went to states and achieved gold, which is it's monumental. And then now he's going to go and compete nationally, and then after that he can compete at Worlds if he's successful. So this is bigger than people realize. This is a big achievement for this young man. I don't know if he's present tonight, but
I think he was here earlier, but I don't see him now. This was a long night.
He was here this long, he deserves a second round.
yeah.
But I think he did. Cesar. Well, we'll have to get him for a picture.
I'll see him tomorrow.
But please
Congratulate him.
congratulate him. And I also
Put it on the website, send it to me.
I also want to know, would like to know, in addition to Cesar's accomplishment, we had 7 gold district medalists. We had 7 gold, 4 silver, and 3 bronze medalists from our 2 high schools. And I'm just going to take a moment for a little CTC commercial. CTC also hosted this year for the first time the NEIU Scholar of the Year Award and had a student recognize Joe Kessler from North Pocono High School. And we had 3 students from our district recognized. Claire Dunleavy from Scranton High School, Evan Crisco from West Scranton High School, and Kyler Pitt from Lincoln Jackson Academy. So I want to congratulate all of them as well. And the night of CTC's graduation, which was a long and hot night, Mr. McAndrew can attest. a wonderful celebration, but I do want to note that at the end of the very long program where everyone was celebrated and their families were cheering and taking photos, one young woman approached the stage and thanked my colleagues and me for our work at CTC and our support of the programs there. And she was very charming and just said a quick hello. And when she walked away, all of my colleagues were very impressed. And so I did a little research on the CTC website and found out that her name is Zoe Kermitis. She was Student of the Month last month in May. She is just graduated from the Protective Services Program and was recently inducted into the National Technical Honor Society. So I didn't know her name at the time, but I just want to tell her she really impressed everyone there that night. It was a very kind gesture. So, thank you.
Roll call.
Mr. Forsman?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Communications to the board.
Okay, an executive session was held this evening, June 3rd, 2019, to discuss labor relations and school safety. We also have an addition to the consent agenda, as long as everyone approves, for the out-of-state field trip for Scranton High. It's item D4, if that's okay.
Okay. So you're adding that to the consent?
Adding that to consent, yes.
Put it in there.
And are we also adding Lake Scranton urgent care?
Are we adding the agent urgent care to the consent as well?
Yes.
Okay.
What is that?
That's F2.
F2. Where's those? Is that it, Ms. Thorpe?
I believe it is.
Solicitor's report?
Madam President, to be the most popular person in the room, I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Solicitor. Ali, Superintendent's report.
To be the second most popular, I have none. Excuse me, yes.
Thank you. You must be a report, Director Gilmore.
I will only mention that registration is open for the School Leadership Conference in October, so check your emails, there's information there.
Thank you, Director Gilmore. At this time, the board welcomes public comment. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Union officials will be allowed 4 minutes, and your time may not be passed to any speaker. When your time is up, we kindly ask that you finish your sentence and wrap up your sentence. In order to maintain respect for all points of view, the board requests no yelling from the audience, no booing or other form of support or non-support to be used. The board will not tolerate derogatory remarks or personal attacks against any board member, administrator, or any person. This is the time for you to publicly air your comment, debate, and dialogue is discouraged at this time. Our first speaker this evening is Luann. Sorry.
Good evening. Luann Hingham, President, 32BJ. I don't often come and speak in front of everybody. I'm not often inspired to do so, but I felt the need tonight. I want to implore you to hire leadership for the maintenance department. We need it. The fact that you want to combine this department with the IT department to save money does not make sense to me. They're both beasts, these two departments, and they deserve to have someone who has the time to devote to each department. If you take it and you split it up the way you want to do, then IT suffers a little bit, maintenance suffers a little bit, and we don't have the leadership that we need. So I'm begging for leadership. I don't know about the IT department, but we need it in maintenance desperately. We also, the union 32BJ did not appreciate the fact that on May 21st, Tuesday, election day, we opened up the newspaper and saw that the waste management was put out for bid. We didn't appreciate that. You could have saved your time because you're not allowed to do that according to our CPA. There is no subcontracting in that, and I would refer you to read Article 6 with the agreement between 32 PJ and the Scranton School District. And I want to end by saying we need to start fixing problems in our building rather than letting them fester. We let things happen, and it builds and it builds and it builds. And maybe if we start fixing the problems, then we can save ourselves from being on the evening news, the morning news, the afternoon news, the front page of the Scranton Times, the second page of the Scranton Times, due to issues in our buildings. If we don't fix these leaky pipes and broken doors and all of this, and we just let them go and go and go, and I'm not blaming anyone up there tonight, it's been going on for years. We have pipes leaking in buildings. I know in Scranton High, we are like the Titanic going down. Our sprinkler system, bad. You know, it's bursting here and there every time you turn around. We have pumps, we have water heaters, we have this, we have that, that are all gone and shot and no good. And that just leads you back to another reason why we need leadership. We need someone who has the time to devote to coming and finding these problems and bringing them to you so that we can get them fixed. So we do need some leadership, and that's really, you know, all I have to say. You know all our issues. So I would hope you would consider helping us out, getting someone to lead us. We need it.
Thank you, Eileen. Rosemary Golan.
Good evening, directors. We take this opportunity tonight, on a happy note, to congratulate all of the 2019 graduates from our two city high schools and our students who are going on to college, into the military, into the trades. We're very proud of them. Our union this year awarded 6 scholarships to students at our two city high schools. And I know on Scranton High School on awards night on stage, Mr. Coyle announced that there was better than $7 million worth of scholarships awarded that night to our students. I think we should be very, very proud of that fact, and I wish we'll get some recognition for that accomplishment in the city of Scranton. I would love it if that would be in the newspaper tomorrow. And also the accomplishment of the students at West. I wasn't going to address this tonight, but I can't help it. I sat through that presentation a little bit ago from Mr. Hunt's firm. That's a mess. That's an absolute disgrace. That somebody we hired at taxpayers' expense gets up here and tells you that we're not ready to roll, doesn't have costs ready to roll. School has to open in September. Some of our buildings are in dire need of repair. This is unacceptable for anybody to get up here and do what was just done a little while ago. Totally unacceptable. And this taxpayer recommends termination. You were failed tonight by this hire, and this isn't good. Willard School needs help now. I think Luann stated the truth a second ago. And for that person to stand up and say what was just said in this room tonight is totally, totally unacceptable. Any other employee would be terminated. And I think it's time we don't keep throwing good money away and listening to all these excuses. There's just no need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Golan. Paige Artistani. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly.
Yeah. So my name is Paige Arstani. As you guys heard before about the property next to Whittier, that's my house. I have pictures, videos. My entire home is just being damaged. I get damage from the back, the side, front. I have thrown away so much. Our entire basement was flooded. Stuff that we've had for years that I was a kid is now gone. Our deck in the back, we had somebody come to paint it, and he goes, I can't make this. We lifted up and replaced like half of the deck. The entire frame underneath is all ruined. I used to have a sidewalk on the side of the house, all the mulch, all the water. Everything's just all eroded away. I don't think I should have to clean up the mulch every single time it rains. All the my stuff is being damaged. And it's just my time, energy, money, and I don't think it's fair. And it's not been going on for 1 year, 2 years, it's 7 years I have been bringing it up. The city says it's a school, the school says it's a city. But it just seems like no one's taking any responsibility at all. I don't know.
We're working on getting that fixed. We finally have a plan to get it done. I know that you've been dealing with this for quite some time now, and we're coordinating with the city, and hopefully before too long we can get it done. And tonight I said we would look into our insurance to see if we and the city have a policy that could help with the damages to your home.
Right.
So I have your number.
Okay.
And I will get back to you.
Okay. And the other thing was, you know, I mentioned it before, I don't know who it was to. This is my first meeting I've ever actually been to. But even if they can't work out a solution, even if they wanted to buy my home for whatever reason, but it's literally been 7 years since we put up the new school, built the properties, and tore down the properties next to mine. That's it.
This water damage started happening 7 years ago, as soon as the school was built.
When the new school was built and they bought the 2 properties next to mine, yeah. And when the engineer came and my dad had asked them, you know, are we going to have this? I think there's going to be runoff. And the engineer said, no, no, no. And apparently I have a copy of the blueprints for the school. I guess in the proposal, they were supposed to put in a drainage system of some sort, and they didn't on the actual blueprints.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm glad you brought that up, because that was on my mind when we were talking before, and now I know why. Is there, I mean, if that was supposed to be part of the original plan and it didn't happen, is there any recourse that way? I mean,
If, it depends.
It wasn't in the plan, was it?
It depends if we acknowledged and said that's fine, or if they said it was in the plan and just simply didn't do it. So
We need to research that.
Behind it.
We need to research that, because if we paid for it and it's not yet done, I mean, I'm sorry we're going through this, that's terrible. And whatever. we
Has
can do.
everybody seen pictures and videos?
I have not.
Okay.
I'll get in touch.
Ms. Destani, did you say that it was supposed to have a drain system, but the plans do not show one?
Correct.
Okay, so that it just wasn't done. And what the engineers are looking at now is to put a drain system in and to regrade and to have the city put a curb in, and they feel like that will make all the difference in the world. So we are working on it.
Prior to us moving forward with that, can we look into those original schematics to see if that was supposed to be part of the original
But
project?
she just said it wasn't.
I do think we need.
Like we don't know, so, because
have been amended or dropped by the board or negligence. One or the other.
I agree. I think we
that's
just
an
need
easy thing to find
to
out.
get back to that, because I even think this came up when Mr. Brazil discussed this. I remember standing in the administration building, he was standing by the door, and he was talking about it in the meeting, and I think that drainage issue came up that night as well.
I reached out to him numerous
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. You know, and I do know he was trying to get the city and the district and everybody to, I mean, I think everybody's been trying, but that's not enough.
They did try sandbags, didn't they? The past couple of years, they were trying to.
Which I thought was terrible.
Yeah, it didn't
Not only
really
was it
work.
an eyesore, it just diverted the water down a little bit further and then came pouring.
Understood.
But my deck is completely ruined, my entire basement. God knows if I had mold, I have 3 children at home. But I just hope that before my house is completely
So
ruined.
it's away.
Yeah, my steps in the front from all the water are now collapsed. We just keep dishing out money just to kind of put a Band-Aid on it, I guess.
Well, thank you for coming, and we are working on it, and it's good to put a name and a face together. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Gerard?
Before we move forward with anything else, can we make sure that that wasn't in the original project?
Yes, I will definitely look at that.
Good to go? Okay, great. Good evening, folks. As always, Gerard Hedman from Lackawanna County Department of Community Relations. We've got a lot of stuff here, and I know it's quite late, so I'll be brief. Our bike helmet coloring contest is now open for submissions. I think the district actually shared this on social media today, so we appreciate that. Basically, it's the same thing we always do. It leads up to our bike safety fair at Dade Park on Saturday, June 22nd. We're asking for the entries to be in next Monday. I know it's a tight turnaround. Please feel free to share it with faculty if they want to do it as a class project. And of course, with parents and students, they'd be welcome to color it in and send it to us. The contact information is on the back, so it's actually flipped that way. We do this every year. It's a great item. We normally get a lot of submissions from district students, so we're happy to see it again this year. Again, of course, our bike safety fair combined with our family fun day at Dade Park is free and open to the public. Again, it will be Saturday, June 22nd. 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Please come out, enjoy the park, and check it out. It's a great opportunity to come out at the start of the summer season and see what we have to offer. We also have the schedule from the Electric City Trolley Museum on their special summer excursions. They've got a number of guests riding the trolley at different times over the summer that include Spider-Man, Mickey and Minnie Mouse, and some Frozen characters. So I'll leave this with you. Of course, there's trolley runs throughout the summer. These are the special events. Again, special guests that they have on board. Again, later in the year, they've got Santa Claus, they do the Easter Bunny earlier in the year. So in the summertime, when kids are out of school, this is what they request for special guests. So check those out if you can. And we've got 2 informational items here. One is on the county's Disability Action Committee workshop. They're coming up on Thursday, June 27th. We've mentioned this before. This is our formal release about it, though, so it puts everything into pretty concise context. Really good information regarding the Americans with Disabilities Act and compliance with that for local governments and also businesses. And again, everyone from the district will be welcome to attend. We think it's very useful information. And we also have some info about the county's Flood Risk Coalition. It's an effort involving many county departments, but also federal and state emergency management agencies regarding flood risk in Lackawanna County, particularly with the debut of new flood maps that will be coming next year. It provides a lot of information. We've got a flyer here. We've also got a comprehensive website that provides some interactive tools to deal with this and to learn more about it. So I encourage you to check those out. There's a lot more than I can describe now. All the other items that we have here deal with either Penn State Extension's 4-H programming over the summer and also Lackawanna County's Parks and Recreation, various camps, clinics, and events that they do. So there's a whole handful. I'll leave those to you to check out and distribute. If you're looking for good ways to keep students engaged over the summer, physically fit and active, and also continuing to learn, these are great opportunities. So please share them. Feel free to check them out. Lots of good stuff here to do during the summer months. That's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for our public comment this meeting. Do I have a motion? May I have a motion to approve
Sorry.
meeting minutes?
Motion approved.
On the question? Roll call?
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Norton?
Yes.
Mr. Pople? Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Borthwick?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Now we have the consent agenda. Before I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, does anyone have any concerns on any of the?
Could we please pull E1, approve backcourt hoops use of Scranton High School?
And also B1,
B is in boy.
B as in boy.
B as in boy 1?
Yes. B1 and E1, correct?
Yes.
B is in boy, E is Allison. Okay. Do we have to add to the agenda the two items that we were going to put on consent, the field trip for Scranton High School?
B4, we did.
We did that.
So that's
Virginia
on
did that,
consent.
yeah.
On
And then the
consent.
urgent care is under
Okay.
F2. It's added to that. So with that being done, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Second? Go ahead. On the question? Roll call?
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Norton? Mr. Pople?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Borthwick?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Okay, now where are we? B. So Director Pople, you'll start with B1.
To the members of the Board of Directors of the Scranton School District, the City of Scranton, is the recommendation of the Superintendent of the Budget and Finance Committee, the following resolution be considered: the list of bill payments in accordance with the bill payment approval policy be approved as per attached. I move that the orders be drawn upon the Treasury as follows: June 3rd, $561,982.52. Respectfully submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question?
On the question, Mr. Lappy, I know I've asked this the last several meetings. John Menor is also on this bill list again. Is this late bills or is this other work done with this?
It's, as of last month, as we discussed last month, the late bill is what the issue is.
There's some transition work in this one also, isn't there, with
Yeah.
Joyce Carmody, Moran, Mr. Audi?
I believe Mr. Rowley's firm was hired at our November meeting. These payments encapsulate, I think, the middle of October to the middle of November.
Did the board receive any of these billing logs?
No, I did not put them in the weekend packet.
Would you like to see any of the billing logs? Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing them.
Okay. Yep, so.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Norton?
Yes.
Mr. Pople?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
I'm going to abstain from this.
Mr. Borthwick?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 abstention, motion passes.
B8?
B8. 6.
I have B8.
There's a question,
Yeah, there's a question about.
there's a question about the
abstain.
abstention. When you do abstain, you have to fill out.
Yeah, I was going to order. Virginia, after the meeting, and
Okay.
if that can't happen, Virginia, I will send you a signed copy of the one.
Yeah, I have one here.
Thank you.
All right.
That's fine.
Okay.
I don't have a B6. B6 was in the consent.
Yeah, B8.
B8.
To the members of the Board of Scranton School District, is the recommendation of the superintendent and the Budget and Finance Committee the following resolution be approved, right, whereas the service bid timeline, and whereas the district received 5 proposals for the services, and now therefore be resolved that the contract for workers' compensation, TPA services be awarded to
That's Excalibur.
Excalibur.
Respectfully submitted.
Do I have a second?
I have a question on that. Did we want to put for the number of 3 years?
Yes, that's what you stated.
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Norton?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Borthwick?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Nina.
To the members of the Board of Directors, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Budget Finance Committee that the following resolution be approved, whereas tax appeals have been received from the Board of Assessment Appeals for the following properties: owner Kevin Karnak, property address 18 Conroy Avenue, map 15719010008. New real estate tax assessment of $12,000, effective date 1/1/2019. Therefore be resolved that the Scranton School Board of Directors approves the new property assessment as negotiated between all the parties involved. Respectfully submitted.
Do I have a second? On the question? Roll call.
Pardon me, I'm sorry, can we get an explanation of the impact on the district, please?
This appeal will cost the district $1,100, this settlement, I should say, will cost the district $1,143. However, in challenging it, the likelihood of success is slim, and the cost of litigation is about triple that savings, and it's also difficult to get an appraiser to do an appraisal on a residential at this time. So that's the reason for the recommendations.
And why do you feel the likelihood of success is slim?
Because the neighboring property is similar to the reduced amount that they're seeking. So the comparables work against us slightly.
Thank you. I understand all of that, and it certainly is reasonable, but I continue to be concerned that we are reassessing this county one property at a time, and we lose when that happens. That's not a revenue neutral proposition. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Roll call?
Mr. Norton?
It's you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
No.
I'm sorry, did you?
No.
Mr. Borthwick?
No.
Mr. Duffy? Ms. Gilmartin?
No.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
No.
Mr. Vogel? I'm sorry, Mrs. Dixon?
No.
6 negative, 3 affirmative, motion fails.
Okay.
Yep.
To the members of the Board of Directors, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Budget and Finance Committee that the following resolution be approved, whereas the Norfolk Southern Railway Company submitted a petition to the Single Tax Office on August 10, 2018, under the Local Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and whereas the petition is seeking a refund of $20,233.80 in real estate transfer tax, and whereas the railroad right-of-way is a tax-exempt property, and whereas representatives for the railroad have offered a discount settlement of $18,144.24 if paid within 10 days of board approval, therefore be it resolved, the Scranton School Board of Directors approved the settlement of $18,144.24 to Norfolk Southern Railroad Company, respectfully submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question?
So as with the last one, Mr. Allen, can you give an explanation?
Yes, in this case, this is a tax that was charged to the railroads that was not an appropriate tax. And the railroad has gone through all the municipalities around this entire region and has sued for the monies back. The likelihood of success in this case is slim to none, frankly. And the discount is as good as we will get. So our firm is recommending that rather than litigate it, spend the money and likely lose, we accept the settlement and avoid the litigation costs. Does that answer any of your questions?
Roll call?
Mr. Koppel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Borthwick?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Goodmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Norton?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
C number 1, members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Community Relations Committee that the following resolution is approved. Whereas Lackawanna College wishes to advertise at the Scranton Memorial Stadium, and whereas the agreement for advertising commences on September 1st, 2019, and expires September 1st, 2021. It is understood that the advertiser will comply with all provisions contained in the standard conditions document, and whereas the advertising fee for the front and back signage of the scoreboard is $28,000 for 2019 through 2021. Payment to the Scranton School Board can be made in full or in 4 installments of $7,000. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scranton School District Board of Education hereby approves the advertising agreement between the Scranton School District and Lackawanna College for advertising use at Ballard Field at Veterans Memorial Stadium. Respectfully submitted.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
On the question?
Is this pricing in line with the advertising plan that was approved previously? And this is great news.
Yes. Roll call?
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Borthwick?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Goodmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Norton?
Yes.
Mr. Koppel?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Okay, so now,
Should have backcourt hoops, I think it is, right?
which one is?
Actually, the operation.
One was pulled.
But,
No, but we have the operations one?
yeah, there's one for the resolution to approve the payment for work that has already been done for the prepare for the design.
What's the number on that?
E5, this is
The
E5.
one project?
It's the
Yeah.
one that,
E1 was
didn't you just
Yeah.
give us that one, Virginia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's E5.
So we're going to do E1 first, or?
Well, E1 is under health and safety.
Yeah,
And
that's
athletics. That's your turn. Oh, okay. But do you want to do E1 first?
Yeah, might as well go in order.
Members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Operations Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas a local AAU basketball program, Backcourt Hoops, has requested the use of Scranton High's high school gymnasium for the 2019 summer season. God bless you. And whereas Backcourt Hoops has been charged a rental fee in the amount of $1,700 for the use of Scranton High School gymnasium for scheduled games from the time period of Monday, June 3rd, 2019 until Thursday, July 18, 2019. And whereas in exchange for the reduced rental fees for the summer season, the Scranton School District will receive an entry fee for 2 teams for the entire summer season hosted by Backcourt Hoops in Scranton, Pennsylvania. This is roughly $1,000 value to the student athletes of the Scranton School District. And whereas, so that no scheduling conflicts occur, Backcourt Hoops is to provide a detailed summer season schedule to the administration of Scranton High School. And whereas backcourt hoops is to provide proof of a certificate of insurance for liability and purposes, and whereas backcourt hoops is responsible for the safety and conduct of its participants and spectators, and whereas adequate adult supervision must be provided by backcourt hoops, and the Scranton School District must be reimbursed for any and all damages to the Scranton School District equipment or faculties. Whereas access to the faculty shall be limited to specified areas, the Scranton High School Gymnasium, and whereas alterations to the Scranton High School Gymnasium is prohibited, and whereas Scranton School District owned equipment shall not be moved from the faculty or loaned to backcourt hoops, and now therefore be resolved, backcourt hoops is allowed to use the Scranton High School Gymnasium for games during the 2019 summer season. Respectfully submitted.
Good. On the question?
What does it cost us to host backcourt hoops? How many games are we talking about? How many days? Is there any additional cost incurred by the district in doing this? I mean, I see that there's $1,000 sort of exchange for our students, which is great. But how does the $1,700 offset the cost?
Bert, would you please comment on that?
Yeah, we have a rental agreement that's a whole resolution to reserve the gym per night, but then for everything that we get for our students, then we take off that rental agreement to give back to our students. And we got an approximate value of around $1,700 that would be balance.
And they do provide an insurance policy. If there's any damage to our property, they have to pay for it.
During that span, it is shut down for about, I'm going to say about 10 days for graduation exercises in Scranton High School.
And as far as the hours of their use, you're saying it's evening hours. Does that affect any of our programs, meaning the summer trainings and such that the kids go through?
No, not at all. That's, before we even did this, we cleared it with the administration of Scranton High School and Mr. Anderson.
And about how many days are we talking about here?
I'm going to say roughly, from that time span, I'm going to say roughly about 12 to 15 nights.
So, just so I'm understanding what you're saying, the 12 to 15 nights would cost us about $2,700. There's sort of an in-kind exchange of $1,000, which gets us
Yeah, we always take off
to the 17.
Gives back to our students.
Okay. And just so I'm clear, is this a for-profit business, or is this some sort of organization? I just don't know much about sports in general.
It's just an AAU center.
Okay.
So each kid is charged a fee to play.
The teams are charged a fee to play, but our district has 2 teams that's given free.
Okay, so
From all over the area.
So what I'm hearing,
Teams from our district get to participate for free. Okay.
2 teams from our district, correct?
Correct.
But are these 2 teams formed from different schools in the district?
No, these 2 teams are Scranton School District students.
Right.
But there's other teams that from out of the area are formed to participate in these.
Right. How are the kids picked from? Are they from Scranton High School, West Scranton High School?
Yeah, and who plays and how they're picked, that I don't know.
Oh, okay. But it's a school-wide, a district-wide participation.
Right.
Okay.
so from what I was hearing from the discount that we're getting for our kids to participate, plus the cost for us to open the doors, to provide electricity, all of that, is this benefiting us? Or are we breaking even?
We're getting $1,700. I mean, yeah, I think it's a worthwhile program. It's a summer league. summer league where we have 2 teams, one from West, one from Scranton, that's allowed to be free, and we charge.
So it's a summer program,
It's a summer aid program.
which I would say is beneficial to our students. Okay.
And I just have one more question about the damages with the insurance. Is there some kind of walkthrough before and after where things are signed off on? Thank you.
I do have one question, if you don't mind. Knowing AAU, you have your U12, U14, U16 age groups and everything. Do you know which age groups are going to be available, or we're just going to pick 2 teams? My question is, are we going to have one high school team and one junior high team, or is that still up for grabs?
I think it's 2 high school teams that will be one from West and one from Scranton.
Okay.
And I know I'm really going to seem stupid when I ask this question, but I'm just going to go for it. How many kids is that? How many kids are on a basketball team is what I'm asking you.
I'm going to say roughly about maybe 12.
Okay.
12.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Dr. Brennan.
Can I just add something? I would be remiss if I didn't tell you this, because you've had a long discussion. In one of my meetings, issues were raised with this particular group, and items such as chairs and tables being broken, and missing items from like bathrooms. I do think we need to follow up, as you mentioned, and have checkers checking off and then charging them if anything is broken. That came up in a couple of my meetings
Dr. Finan,
from sources, good sources.
that came up before, and we do have controls in place. Our principals are responsible to do the walkthroughs to make sure that nothing is broken. I know that Ms. Heenahan, who was here tonight, had complained to me. When I checked back with the principal, he totally disagreed with what she was saying. So, you know, we do have controls in place, and I've heard the same things that you have heard.
Well, just because we are a little limited on our funds, I just don't want to see tables and chairs missing from a building, and we can't afford to replace them, so. And it is a for-profit group.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Borthwick.
I wish I had more information after hearing that. I'm going to say no.
Mr. Duffy.
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin.
I know I can't continue to comment, but I think given the timing of this, yes, I would again reiterate that the controls need to continue to be adhered to, and perhaps this is something we need to assess again.
Every year, they do apply, and we bring it to you. So it's not something that lasts and lasts and lasts. So we will continue to do that and continue to monitor.
I guess where I was going was, are we charging enough money for this to occur in our schools?
Mr. Gentilezza, comparatively speaking with what you're doing with other groups and rentals, do you feel as though this is a fair price?
Well, given the fact that we've had a discussion after the vote started, I think perhaps we might want to restart the vote, because some of the information may change Mr. Borthwick's mind.
So we'll roll call again.
So are we concluded on the question?
I apologize, I started to try there.
No. I just want to make sure that we're doing this properly. Any other on the question, top comments? Now I think we should start the vote over.
Roll call.
Mr. Borthwick.
I'll go yes now. Thanks, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Duffy. Ms. Gilmartin.
Yes.
Mr. Lush.
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew.
Yes.
Mr. Norton.
Yes.
Mr. Pople.
Yes.
Mr. Schuster.
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon.
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Okay.
So I'll be calling on my do-over soon, Mr. Bellamy.
What's that? I'm sorry.
So I get a do-over, just let me know when it comes time.
Now we have E5.
It is a recommendation of the superintendent and the operations committee that the following resolution is approved. Whereas Hunt Engineering has submitted a proposal to prepare the design for the Francis Wade Water Infiltration Project, and therefore be resolved that the Scranton School Board approve Hunt Engineering to proceed with the Willard Water Project at a total cost of fees and reimbursables of $13,000. I so move.
Second.
On the question.
So on the question, I'm seeing proceed with the Willard Water Project, but what we're doing here is work that's already been completed, correct? It's the design.
It is the design, Mr. Schuster.
And that work has already been completed.
That's all I
Is that true?
That part of it has been completed, Dr. Carey?
It has not, is that correct, Michael?
That's correct.
You are approving for Hunt Engineers to do the design project, the design work for the project. Approving or not approving, up to you.
But we previously did a report phase that identified the problem, and we did the field work. We snaked the lines, put a camera in the line, and identified the problem and the solution in the attached report. The next phase is to design that solution.
But this surveyment is for work
That's been performed.
For the next phase.
Right. It has not been performed yet. Design.
So what was previously approved was
It's complete.
the field work and
Right.
everything leading up to this point, and that we have compensated you for, correct?
We
I mean, not you
we
personally.
completed that phase of the report, yes. Hunt has completed all of their design phases so far that we've been hired to do. I believe some people may be misinformed of that process. What we talked about before, we're waiting for prices from the contractor. We're not the contractor. We were hired to do the design. The design is complete. Our services have been completed.
Okay, so that being said, that's what this $13,000 is for. Okay, we're paying what you've done already, not post-dating a check for work that you are going to do.
They'll also be designing the work that they're going to be doing, so the draw or the design work will be done at this point in time. Mr. Laffey, do you think you could explain this somewhat, going from our past architects and engineers? Has this been their process as well? I know it's a little somewhat out of your scope, but.
Somewhat. My understanding of the process is, as Mr. Jones has mentioned, there was a resolution adopted a few meetings back where you hired them to begin the report phase into field work for the project. Now, the design of this has been provided with a cost of $13,000 for the design and reimbursables. That would be the next step in this process. And based off of that, that would be the bid document that would go out to contractors to determine what the scope of that was. So there'd be another resolution to be adopted at some point once those bids come in. It's a little different than the project that we talked about with Whittier, which was done on the Keystone Purchasing Network to do the timeliness of it. That contractor will be submitting to Mr. Jones a bid based off the scope of the work that they've already prepared for them.
Yeah, this is the engineering firm, it's not the
Correct.
construction firm.
Yeah.
Right.
And the contractor in question for the Whittier project is S.J. Thomas. Keystone Purchasing Network, along with the Gordian Group, they bid out the services statewide, and they awarded contracts to regions of the state based off of the lowest combined prices that they've received. So it's two projects, similar schools, bid methods are a little different. Right.
Because one's going Keystone.
Yes, we haven't, so for the Whittier project, the bids haven't been completed yet because the scope of the work hasn't been determined. So I think the design is going to determine what scope of work is to be done next, to be placed out to bid.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Yeah. But some of the other work that was performed was the initial report and the field work, which through resolution was authorized at a prior meeting.
They've assessed the situation, how we're going to work together, what goes into fixing it.
Right.
And would I be correct to assume that that would all have to be done again, should we say this isn't working?
Should we say that?
I mean, this, yeah, I mean, this seems to be a frustrating, I find any construction to be a frustrating, let's get that out there right now. This is not exclusive to this experience, but I think this is a frustrating process here that has many more steps than I anticipated, and perhaps I misunderstood what was presented to us. But if we were to say, this is, we need to sever our ties and move on, we would have to do this work again, correct? But this project stands on its own at this point from all of the other things we discussed this evening.
That is correct. We're voting on just Willard's water infiltration.
I mean, you guys were hired, right, to give us all the services we needed, right?
Right.
Okay. I mean, this board has got to place some trust in these people as to what they're going to do. I mean, what did you say? You have a 4-week window for your bids?
Right, yeah.
Okay, and then you got to get that all back in, all right, and be able to put a price out there, am I correct?
Right, yeah.
I mean, you know what, we're killing this project here. We do have some deadlines here to meet, you know? Why are we making it more than it is? So.
Because this is a lot of money.
I understand it's a lot of money,
And this is one
but
of
that's
many
why you hired him. That's why you hired him, right there. He's the professional.
And I think it's our responsibility to make sure that resources are
I
allocated.
get that, Kate, I get that 110%.
Okay, can we,
Do we have any more questions?
Well, I agree, we have to meet deadlines, and I believe, moving forward, we can do as well. And that's not a degradation to any of the work that we've been doing to this point, because frankly, I don't know a lot about it, but we're hoping to move along as quickly as possible, just due to the necessity of these current projects. I'll be voting yes tonight just because of the necessity of this project, but moving forward, if deadlines aren't met, and not to place you under unreasonable pressure, but we have to move forward, we have to move forward as inexpensively as possible with an exact cost of those things, as needle point sharp as they can be.
and I will tell you that I have been pushing, Michael can attest to this, because we started late. By the time they were appointed, by the time we got the projects that we wanted to work on approved by the board, and then began our work together, that all took time. So we're not in a cadence where we're moving in a rhythm. And I have been putting a lot of pressure on them to try to push these projects forward, because I knew exactly where we would be tonight. And unfortunately, we landed there, not without Michael trying to get the bids.
I mean, I'm certainly
He did do that.
sensing
and
frustration on your point,
Yeah.
on your part, from some information that you expected to have for you to be prepared to come this evening, and I understand that. But I agree with Mr. Duffy. I mean, I think you laid out some dates earlier in the meeting, and if this is able to get back on track, that's great. I certainly would not be in favor of holding up a project, of redoing work and re-incurring expenses like that. But I think we're all on the same page that this
I will remind you that Mr. Brazil left.
Right.
And I have picked up his work. Pat has helped me as much as he possibly can with his work. We are short-staffed, and it's difficult for us to move work the way we would like to. And our vendors all experience our frustrations. So if we could just be patient through but if you could just make allowances for all the shortages that we're experiencing right now. It just rolls over. And I think we talked about that earlier this evening, about the difficulty we're having with the roll of masking tape we have. Okay? Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have any more questions? Roll call.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Norton?
Yes.
Mr. Pople?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Borthwick?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Okay. Policy, Director Goodmore?
F1, personnel.
Oh, F1. Personnel, Director Borthwick.
So members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, at the recommendation of the Superintendent and Personnel Committee, that the attached list of appointments, assignments, resignations, and leaves of absences is approved. Appointments are effective upon receipt of proper criminal records, immigration, medical, and child abuse reports. Salaries are in accordance with collective bargaining agreements. Respectfully submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question, you'll see one of the candidates down there, the last name is Lesh. I'll admit, yes, it's the same name, but no relationship.
Thank you.
So noted.
Roll call?
I'm sorry.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. The professional appointments, can we just get an update on where we stand with the number of the special education, the positions that were worked into the budget? I know many were hired, and then we lost some, and we got some. Where are we now?
John, would you come up, please? Do you need Sharon to be with you, or do you have it all?
I may refer to her at some point. Good evening, everyone. I believe at this point, based on the number of special ed teachers the board authorized us to hire, that there is one remaining position. From the original, I believe it was 12. Are you nodding in an affirmative, Sharon?
It was 12, yes, and there's just the 2 for Michelle.
Yeah, I believe one is on tonight's agenda. Correct, yeah, so there's still one candidate for Monticello to hire, and that'll be done this summer.
So on this hire list, there are 2. So there's one more after this.
One additional, yes, correct. Any other questions?
And the replacement is someone like from that original pool of, I guess, 11, if there's still one more to be filled. That's the position that's being replaced. We lost someone there, and we're replacing him with this person here tonight. Is that?
Just give me 1 second to locate the agenda. Yes, the first name is the one of the remaining 2 that we hired for next school year, so we'll bring one more to you at the next board meeting. And the second name started April 22nd, so that was not one of the last 2.
Any questions? Thank you.
So I guess to repeat that, out of the 12 that we were approved for the budget, there's one left.
Correct, there's one left.
It was a matter of waiting on certification.
But I also believe it was lack of room availability.
Right, we were waiting for the rooms to open, but we had already, when we interviewed, we had already picked the 12 people, and we were just waiting on, yes, they couldn't start because the rooms weren't done yet. But that's why that other person isn't on the agenda now, I believe.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call?
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Norton?
Yes.
Mr. Pople?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Borthwick?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy? Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Dr. Martin?
No, I got one more.
Oh, never mind. Don't make it any longer.
To members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Policy Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas the following policies, 150, 220, 335, and 913, first read, have been revised by the Pennsylvania School Board Association. Policy 150, Title I, Comparability of Services. Policy 220, Student Expression, Distribution, and Posting of Materials. Policy 335, Family and Medical Leaves. Policy 913, Non-School Organizations, Groups, Individuals. Whereas the policies 006, 006.1, 337, 606, and 610, first read, have been revised by the Scranton School District Policy Committee. Policy 006, Meetings. Policy 006.1, Attendance at meetings via electronic communications. Policy 337, Vacation. Policy 606, Tax collection. Policy 610, Purchases subject to bid quotation. Whereas the following board operating guideline, BOG 004 BOG-2, first read, has been revised by the Scranton School District Policy Committee. 004 BOG-2, Board of School Directors Application Form. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scranton School Board hereby approves as a first read revision of policy numbers 150, 220, 335, and 913, recommended by the Pennsylvania School Board Association, and as a first read revision of policy numbers 006, 006.1, 337, 606, 610, and Board Operating Guideline 004 BOG-2, recommended by the Scranton School District Policy Committee, respectfully submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question?
I just will reiterate the fact that I do have a few small updates and things put in wrong places and a few rewordings I would suggest, but nothing that changes the point of what we're doing, so we'll bring those back.
Very good. Roll call?
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Norton?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Borthman?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
New business?
I have something quick under new business. I read an article today that I think I should share with all of you. This is in Harrisburg, so the state takes control of Harrisburg. The petition filed by the Education Secretary Pedro Rivera said he is seeking appointment of a receiver because of the district's failure for refusal to implement the recovery plan. This is a scary reality for Harrisburg, and I think we need to take notice. I just wanted to share that. That's all I have.
Thank you,
Mr. McAndrew, I'm calling this Liz Carter. How long were they in recovery?
I think since 2012.
12?
Yes.
And they're not implementing the plan?
I just shared what I read today.
Yeah.
That just came out today.
Yes, today, so.
Yeah. Serious. Anything else? I would just like to close the meeting by congratulating on part of the board all our successes of our seniors graduating from both high schools, Scranton High and West Scranton High School. We wish them all the luck in their new endeavors. In the spirit of our veteran ceremony tonight, I'd like to just thank all our past, present, and future servicemen that sacrifice for our country, as well as our colleague on the board, Mr. Lush. I'd like to thank you for your service to the country.
Is that good for your school?
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd just like to mention, I'd just like to add on to that, the individuals we had here tonight, okay, young men and young women here, again, there is no draft. All right, these young men and women volunteer, serve their country. Now keep in mind, we've had 2 students from Scranton High School, our Scranton School District, that have made the ultimate sacrifice. That I can mention, I mean, There's probably more. I believe there's actually 3 that I can right offhand. But recently, in the latest conflict, was 2 young men that had lost their lives. So, you know, you got to really have hats off to these young men and women.
And to you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Meeting to adjourn. A motion to adjourn. A little punchy. Second. Meeting to adjourn.
Trip me over here.